Hi, I'm Lee Judges from Lee Judges TV. Thoughts going into this season, I think it's going to be an interesting season. I do believe that Arsenal have recruited very, very well, so being a little bit biased, I think that Arsenal are going to win it again. I think we're going to retain our title. I think that we've done fantastic business with i.e. Bruno, and Cons are coming in today, so I think that we'll be in a very, very good position this season. I'll be disappointed if we don't challenge. But I think it's interesting. Chelsea, I think, will go well, recruited pretty well, and we've only one game a week. Man United are quietly going about some good business as well, so I think that it'll be the usual suspects up there. And, of course, the two teams from last season that were down the bottom-ish, round about that, Nottingham Forest and Spurs, I think will have much, much better seasons than they did, and I think will be pushing at the top half of the table. So that means that those Europa League spots are going to be very interesting, like the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth in their last season, and of course getting on to Everton if they can push forward with a chance of Europe. I think that thoughts going in about Everton, I felt that had a good chance of getting Europe last season, but didn't get that result against Spurs at the end of the season, which could have got you into the European spots. But listen, I think if I look at Everton, I thought they had some brilliant performances last season. None better than the one against Man City. Thank you very much for getting the 3-3 there on a game which I felt you deserved to win. So if I'll be really honest about Everton, I think they've not really recruited as well. I don't know how you guys feel about that. They've not probably have recruited as much as I felt that they should have done this season. I felt maybe they should have probably got a couple of more attacking options, but they've brought in some good players. The guy from Middlesbrough looks like a very, very good set. And I think that's where Everton are making good sound signings at this moment in time. But I think somewhere along the line you've got to push the boat out. I think it looks like Jack Grealish is going to be staying at Man City. I think that's a big blow. And I thought he was a very, very good player for you last season. I think it's important that you keep your better players as well. I'm going to go for Everton around about 9th, 10th again this season. I'm really sorry, I just feel that not done enough this season to really push on. And as I say, unfortunately, I think that Forest and Spurs have recruited pretty well. And that's the difference at this moment in time. When someone like Spurs have spent, nigh on 300 million on about 4 or 5 players. Everton can't do that at this moment in time. They may be able to do that in a couple of years' time with a new stadium. So I think it'd be very, very interesting. I don't see Everton struggling down the bottom of the table. I think home form will dictate that, and of course David Moyes as well. So I'm saying around about 9th or 10th. Look, you know how I feel. I'd love to see Everton getting into Europe and I'm pushing for that place really. Who do I think is going to get relegated? Unfortunately, I think that it'd probably be the 3 that come up. So it'd be Hull, Ipswich, and Coventry. But if I fear for somebody, it's Fulham. I don't think they've really recruited that well. And of course, they've lost their manager as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think it's going to be a good season. And listen, I hope that Everton do well in the domestic cups and really give it a good go. But I think, I'll leave it with Arsenal to retain the title. But let's hope Arsenal and Everton have good seasons.
Hello, everybody. This is Neil from For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. I'm delighted to be asked by the guys to do a season review for my beloved Aston Villa Football Club. A club whereby I think we can say we're going through a hell of a lot of flux this off-season. And I suppose my thoughts going into this season are I've developed a bit of a catchphrase over this off-season of I'm going to look at everything Aston Villa do with curiosity, interest and excitement, because we're moving from Unai Emery 1.0 into Unai Emery 2.0, I think, at the moment. Villa are in a strange situation whereby we've finally gotten some silverware. And obviously been to the Champions League 2 out of the last 3 years, and the third year we didn't make the Champions League. We didn't make it on goal difference. So by all means, we've been punching way above our weight over the course of the last 3 seasons, solely because of Unai Emery. And now Unai Emery gets his chance to stamp his authority on this team, bring in the players he wants, given that he won he playing with an awful lot of players, should I say, that were there in the Steven Gerrard, Dean Smith era previously. So my thoughts, I suppose, are that yes, we're in flux. We've lost Morgan Rogers, Yuri Tielemans, Luca Dean, soon to be Emmy Martinez. I suppose really of those people that have left, the only one that's really kind of a bolt from the blue is Yuri Tielemans. So it's interesting that the club have, or it's interesting to see what the club have up their sleeve. Bringing in Garnacho, finding this gem that seems to be Brian Maggio, this hulk of a man playing up top. And I think that there's some more attacking additions to be brought in. João Gomez is a super signing so far for Aston Villa. And if Villa were to get another midfielder in there, maybe two midfielders, there's talks of João Palhinha coming in there as well. There's talks of a right winger who I think definitely will come into this club. There's talks of another attacker coming in, and we're waiting on the signings and the official announcements of Matteo Ruggieri as right back, Zion Suzuki is the goalkeeper, and potentially Aaron Wan-Bissaka as right back should everything go to plan on that end. Villa come to an agreement on a full transfer as opposed to a loan. So the summer business I'm actually happy enough with so far, and the rumoured people we're in for I'm happy enough with. I'm not happy enough with some of the rumours that are going around about Ezri Konsa, Ollie Watkins. Obviously, if they go, we have to replace those guys. So the flux at Aston Villa and the change is absolutely massive. But it's something I think that fans should treat with interest, definitely be curious and trepidatious about, but also there has to be some sort of excitement because we have Unai Emery, we have Champions League football, and there's a lot of goodwill in the bank this manager has, and now he gets to finally buy some players in that he wanted to buy. And if he's able to do what he could do with the players that he inherited, hopefully he'll be able to excel at, or at least keep the train on the tracks, maybe get Champions League football again, which would be absolutely incredible for Aston Villa to get Champions League 2 years in a row, financially and everything that comes with making it 2 years in a row or 3 years out of 4. It really catapults you financially onto the big stage. So that is massive for Aston Villa. That's something I think that Villa will be very much looking for, even with this change. I don't think there'll be any excuses from Unai Emery. My thoughts on Everton and David Moyes. I really like David Moyes. I've always liked him as a manager. Always thought that I've just always liked him as a manager. I'll be honest with you, proper footballing man. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Everton's business that they've done this season, but Everton are a proper club. I really like Everton Football Club. It's the ground, the old Goodison was the ground I've been at the most outside of Villa Park. I used to love going there. I used to love getting into the wooden stands, the wooden seats and everything like that. And I was sad to see it go. And unfortunately, due to family, due to having a young family and stuff like that, I couldn't get over there in the last season for one last time. But I've been there 5-6 times previously to see Villa versus Everton. And I actually, on a stag, I went there one day to see Georgios Samaras's debut for Man City, where Everton played against Man City that day. So that's a little bit of useless trivia that you may not know. But love Goodison and wish you guys all the best in the new Hill Dickinson again, even for this season. And hopefully I get over to see that as well. But really think that I really hope you guys kick on, because it's, once again, you guys have been a bit in the doldrums over the last couple of years, but things are starting to go in the right direction for you guys. It'd be interesting to see Everton without a Seamus Coleman at right back as well. So it feels like an end of an era there. I'm sure it does. Me being Irish, obviously, Seamus Coleman is something that I'm always going to look towards. But I wish you guys all the best for the rest of the year. And I think that you guys have every opportunity to finish in the top 8. I think there'll be some regression from some teams. Will Bournemouth, will Brentford, will those guys be able to kick it doing Thursday, Sunday, over the course of the next few weeks and months, or next few months, should I say? So will somebody usurp them and get in there? Look, it's an open field, I think, in the Premier League. So you guys could do that. I see Everton finishing anywhere from 11th to 7th, to be honest with you. And I think there's quite a lot of teams who think that they can finish in that era and get back into European football. I think Aston Villa, I'm hoping Aston Villa finish top 5 again this year. I just don't rule out anything when I've got Unai Emery as my manager. I just think that he walks on water, and so do a lot of Villa fans. And he's proven to be just such a brilliant manager over the course of the time he's been at Aston Villa. Unfortunately, I think with regards to relegation, I think it's going to be tough for Ipswich to stay up, even though it looks like they're going to sell. It looks like they're going to sell, or they're going to spend the more than any promoted team. I think it's going to be tough for Hull to stay up again as well. And I don't even know who the last team is that's going to go down, but I think really the three promoted teams that have come up potentially will have potentially will be the three teams that will be in danger again at going down. I don't think we're going to be in a position where we're going to see a Spurs or Manchester United or somebody of that ilk down there again this year. But the Premier League has been weird the last couple of years, so it could very well be that situation whereby things like that could happen. People will talk about Newcastle going down. I think there's too much quality there. I really like their new manager that they've brought in as well, and I think they're going to spend too. So yeah, you could be looking at the three promoted teams to go back down again this year. I think, but hey, I've always been known to be wrong in the past. Thanks so much, guys, for asking me for my season preview. Really appreciate it, and hope to chat to you again soon.
Hello, Everton fans. It's Craig Beasley here from Up the Cherries in all departments, the AFC Bournemouth fan channel. The thoughts going into this season. Well, where do we start? It's a bit of an unusual one. Of course, Andoni Iraola has left the club, did a fantastic job getting us to sixth last season, and Marco Rose has come in. I was a little bit worried before the start of the pre-season friendlies, but it seems like Marco Rose has got a tune coming out of these players and seems like he's progressed us on a little bit more. With regards to our activity during the window, we've signed three 22-year-olds in Alvaro Rodriguez from Elche. He is centre forward. Antonio Silva from Benfica at the back. And then we got a right back in Janlu Sanchez from Sevilla. I think three very Bournemouth signings, to be perfectly honest. And it's what we have been known to do. We've been known to actually bring in youngsters who we can develop and build up. The coaching staff are going to be Marco Rose has got a really good coaching staff around him, and I'm quite excited to see, what they do and how they improve the existing lads as well as these new youngsters. I think based on what we've seen so far during pre-season, we are probably going to concede quite a few goals this term. However, we're probably going to score quite a few as well, and we're going to be quite threatening up front. I think Krupi is out for the first 3 to 4 months. But it seems like Marco Rosa has got a different style in mind, or a bit of an adaptation of what Andoni had, I should say. So it's going to be exciting times. We'll see what happens this year. Evan Nilsson has had quite a good pre-season. So there's a lot of positive signs, and we haven't really lost many players apart from Hamad Traore and Dennis Unal, who were really first team starters. So, in all honesty, we've just strengthened, and that's a great place to be. With regards to Everton and Moyes, I think Moyes is a stable coach. He doesn't play the most attractive of football. But then again, I think you're probably used to that after Sean Dyche. But I think he signed sensibly. He signed players that I think will add to the group, and very much players that will really fight for the Everton badge. And that's what I really expect from Everton. Reading a great book, actually, Duncan Ferguson's book, which details the reason why players play for Everton, and I think that jumps out with the lads that you have signed as well. I think there's some real quality in there. Of course, we know what Norgard can bring to a team. I think he's a solid bit of business. Didn't really take off at Arsenal, but I think he will find his own at Everton. I think Tarek George from Chelsea, nice bit of business. Sensible. Hayden Hackney from Middlesbrough, very highly rated. I think, again, if he can make the step up to the Premier League, which there's no reason why he shouldn't, I think then, you should have the core of a very, very good team. Um, it's going to be a strange season, but the good thing is you've got stability. We have got a new manager. Believe it or not, there's been 8 appointments since Marco Rosa was appointed AFC Bournemouth manager. That's a bit shocking, to be perfectly honest. And I think there's going to be some teams who are going to be surprise contenders for those bottom 3 slots. I think for ourselves, I would take 8th place and a good run in Europe. That's what we dream of. And I think if we can have a good run, upset the likes of Juventus and Milan, then, what a great season it will be. So 8th for ourselves. I think we've got core squads. It's very good. I think there could be a little bit more strength in depth, which could be added, but I think we'll be okay. We might tail off towards the end of the season after a strong start. With regards to Everton, I think you'll be absolutely fine. I think you'll be absolutely not a problem at all. No concerns. I think you'll probably get a good cup run as well. It'll be great to see Everton, have a good cup run. You never know. An Everton AFC Bournemouth FA Cup final. That would be a good one. Of course, hopefully we'll win it, but it'd be good. But I think I would safely say probably 12th, 13th. It is a transition spell for Everton in terms of the playing squad. I think, that Moyes will get things right. He's a steady manager, as you know, and he will build up. But you never know. He could surprise quite a few people. But yeah, I think personally we'll both be okay. You've got the stability and the continuity on your side. With regards to who wins the league and gets relegated, this is probably where I'm going to go down in Everton fans' estimations. I think the team playing in red might do it. And Andoni Areola is a great manager, and I think he will get the best out of players, and I think he will improve them. And I fancy them to actually do something this season. It definitely won't be Man City. Arsenal possibly will be the competitors. Um, I wouldn't be surprised to see Man United, unfortunately, back up there, as I think Spurs will have a better season. Well, to be honest, they can't have any worse. With regards to relegation contenders, I think there's one obvious one in there, but I don't think the rest of it is very obvious. I think Hull City will finish bottom of the league, 100%. I can't see them surviving at all. I don't think they've got a hope in hell. Um, with regards to the other 2 places, though, I think this might be quite an interesting season. And like I say, there is a lot of transition. And I'm actually going to go for 2 teams who have changed their managers, but one of them has lost their manager to the other. And I'm going to say, I think Nottingham Forest will finish in 19th spot. I think Oliver Glasner won't see the season out. I think Marinakis will get on his nerves, and I think it'll all fall apart. So, yes, I'm going with Nottingham Forest in 19th, and I think Crystal Palace in 18th. I haven't been very impressed by them, and I'm not too sure about their appointments. I think Ipswich have got a chance because they got Gary O'Neill, and I think he'll scrape them through. And I think Coventry are coming up on the crest of a wave, and I think that crest of that wave will continue. So I'm going to go with Palace, Forest, and of course Hull City as well. But yes, thank you so much for having me on. No doubt we'll catch up during the season. And yes, all the very, very best to Everton, apart from when we play you at your place, and of course when you come down here to Dean Court. But otherwise, I wish you the very best. All the best. Thank you.
Hi, this is Billy the Bee Grant here, and welcome Everton fans. Thank you for inviting me onto your channel. I'm from Brentford, the Besotted podcast, and I'm just going to give you a bit of a lowdown on Brentford this season, my thoughts going into this season. By the way, you'll catch us on prideofwest.london. We're mainly an audio podcast, but if you check us out on YouTube, we've got thousands of videos from the third and the second division, as we call it, back in the day. But we've flipped onto the audio side now, mainly. Anyway, Brentford this season. I've got to admit, I'm actually very, very excited about this season. It's our sixth season in the Premier League, and it's got to that stage where stability. Brentford have been in there. Obviously, a lot of people thought that we're going to get relegated after the first and the second and third season, and it's gone on. We never take anything for granted, but we've just mocked on in there and we've just supported our team. The team's just done their thing. We're now there 6 seasons in. We've obviously got, the money that's helped us to support us being in that division every single year, and 6 seasons in with 150 million. I suppose we've actually realised it's time that we can actually step it up a little. So what Brentford have done is that they've managed to keep, at the moment, it says not work, most of their side together. But on top of that, also we've brought in some really, really good signings, which I'll talk about in the moment, which have actually helped to not only strengthen our side, but also give us strength and depth, which is something that we haven't had over the seasons. We've had some great players, some great squad players who are real Brentford players, if you know what I mean. So players that actually believe in the club, but maybe they haven't been as strong as the players that they've had to replace when they've come off the bench. And that's just that's just what it takes being a team of our size, and we realise that, but we're now at the stage now where, after being in this division this time, the club have decided to step in and buy some players who, when they step in against the first team players, they're going to be, we'd say, equally as strong, just about. So, like I said to you, very, very excited about that. So, summer business. The main player that we bought in that everyone's really excited about is Sangare. We've got him from Lens, RC Lens. He helped them to win the cup last year in France. And he's basically, from what we can gather, he's one of the hottest sort of CDM, central midfielders, out there, who is out for sale at the moment now. And Brentford have been looking at him for a long time, as Brentford do. And he's going to absolutely bring a lot to our team. Probably take him a few weeks to actually get used to the Premier League, but he's very athletic. He's very good at pressing, which is our pressing game is one of our big games at the moment now. Very good at distributing the ball, getting the ball out really quickly. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to be really key to Brentford, because for us, we've got a really, really fast forward line, and getting the ball, winning the ball back and getting it up to them is going to be one of our key strengths. So last few seasons, our midfield's been okay. Jordan Henderson was there. He came in to do a job. He was never there long term. He was there for a season or two. He's got the option to go to Chelsea. We've actually taken him up at that option and think, thank you very much, Jordan. You can go after Chelsea, because we're not going to give you an extra year's contract. So you could take that Chelsea offer. We'll go and buy Sangare instead. This is not disrespecting Jordan. I'm just saying that, it worked for us for last season with Jordan Henderson there, especially at the start of the season, obviously with Thomas Frank leaving, Wisa going on strike, the team, and Bomo leaving. So we're a little bit all over the place to start the season. So Jordan Henderson coming in and giving us some stability, giving us some experience was really great. But by the time it got to January and February, in that central midfield position, which he took over from Christian Norgard, who I'm going to talk about in a bit, who's one of your players. He was great to start off with, but then, by the second half of the season, he was coming on 10 minutes, giving him 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the most. And we realised that we might be looking at other options in that position. So Sangare, exciting central midfielder. Then we got Anthony Wilson. Jaden Anthony as well from Burnley. Obviously, Burnley got relegated. Everyone says, why are you buying a player from Burnley? But that doesn't mean that they don't have bad players. He's a good player for them. He's a very, very good player for them. And he caused us a few problems when we played them. We had a bonkers game. I can't remember the score. It's like 5-4 or 4-3 or something ridiculous like at their place. And he came and caused them lots of problems. We've had an issue where we've got, Shada, Otara and Thiago up front. But then if we have to take them off, whoever replaces them isn't quite the level at all. So Anthony's come on, he can play at both sides, so he can replace Otara and he can place Shada, but he can also hopefully have the same effect that they have, attacking, giving defenses problems. So that's really exciting. Then also we've also got Callum Wilson, who we've just signed as well. We signed up for West Ham for a free transfer. And he is another player again who's he's got experience. So it's similar to what we had with Jordan Henderson. He's willing to come in, but probably different to Jordan, as in he's willing to come in and sit on the bench and then come off with 10 minutes to go and actually make an impact. My West Ham friend said to me, if he does what he did for us, he'll score you 1 in 3 off the bench. And that's the kind of player that we want, gives us strength and depth. So, Callum Wilson, great player. And apparently his attitude is fantastic in the dressing room. And then we got this young kid called Schuster, who's a centre back. He's only 19 years old. We paid 16 million for him from RB Salzburg. And he's, again, meant to be very good. At the moment now, not necessarily a first team player, but Brentford always looking 2 years ahead. So he's the kind of player that they're looking at maybe a couple of years ahead, replacing somebody like, Collins or Vanderberg. But apparently he's a very, very good prospect. So very, very exciting. And also you have to remember we've got Cavallo, who we bought a couple of seasons ago from Liverpool. He got injured, so he's been out for a while. So he hasn't really shown what he's like. So he's back as well. So let's see how he fits in. We got Milambo got injured as well, but he's a little bit quieter. So like I said to you, we've got a decent squad at the moment now. And we haven't lost anyone. He says touch wood at the moment. There's rumours of Jensen possibly leaving and going to Turkey, but that hasn't happened. And from what I can gather, doing our besotted due diligence, as we say, that doesn't look like it's going to be on the cards. So which is all good. Everton, talking about Everton, first player, obviously I've got to talk about. I mean, David Moyes. I've always respected him as a manager. I thought he's a great manager. I remember when he came down, when he's managing Preston, when he played Brentford, when we were in the third tier, I think it was. Yeah, it would have been the third tier, like the third Division 3. So I remember him managing Preston at that stage. Obviously, he's managed his other teams as well, including West Ham, which I thought West Ham didn't treat him very well as well. The fans obviously were expecting too much, and now look at them; they're in the Championship, and they said, "Our manager's not good enough." And I was like, "Oh no, we're in the Championship." But that's the way it goes. That's very Charlton-esque, because I say they did the same thing as well with their manager early on. But Christian Norgard, as a player. Brilliant player. I've already done a review for him on your channel, so check that out. Brilliant, 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 brilliant player for us. He absolutely kind of was we bought him in the era where Brentford went up 2 notches in the Championship, and we bought him in as a player who will get us out of the Championship, but also was Premier League ready as well. He used to be he used to be an attacking midfielder when he was at Bromby with Thomas Frank. They converted him to a CDM. But if you look at him tactically, he's got nous. You know what I'm saying? He's got the front foot. His passing is great. He's a really good player. He's just clever. He anticipates where the ball's going to be, and also he adds to them set pieces. So you've got a great player in Christian. Obviously, he's a couple of years older than when he left us. When he left us, a lot of fans were sad for the history. The thing about it is, we have to say, is also that he is obviously years older than he was. And fitness wise, he couldn't play more than a couple of games a week. He couldn't play, week back to back. Difficult for him to play, 2 games. For him to play full 90 minutes again, no, he will definitely add to your game. But the thing with him is that we were just playing him, and we weren't able to play him all the time. He was so important to us. And so and that's why I think Arsenal bought him, because he's the type of player that he could play 1 in 3, 1 in 4 games for them, and he'd come out and he'd be okay. So great player. But like I said to you, quite a long recovery time that he has after matches, because, he's older than he was before. But like I said, good add to your squad as well. Brennan Johnson also was a player that we were actually looking at. He was a key player for Brentford. We were trying to get him when he was at Lincoln, on loan at Lincoln, actually. Again, we were ahead of the game, properly ahead of the game. I think we bid about 10 million to Forest for him when he was on loan to them. They wanted more. In the end, we didn't go up to the figure that they wanted. He came back to them. He had a brilliant season. And then Bob's your uncle, and he went off to Tottenham. Tottenham heard we were into them the following season. They bid 50 million or something ridiculous, and that was way out of our zone. We just, we did at that time. We don't do numbers like that. But I know that a lot of our bosses were saying they were quite gutted at not getting him and maybe going the extra leg to get him, because we were looking at pace at the time, and he brought them pace. There's things that he had to work on, but Brentford, as we are, believe that we could have actually worked with him to make him the player that we wanted to be. So we don't look at the fact that, he didn't necessarily deliver at Tottenham, even though he did win him a cup, or did he win him 2 cups? Was it? You know what I'm saying? So we don't look at that kind of thing. But all I do is I look at our Brentford top boys, and if they say that Johnson was a great player for them, then I've got to just tip my hat and say, yeah, I agree with them. Hackney, I've got a lot of Borough mates. So I was really hoping they went up. I really like Borough as away day. It's a great away day as far as I'm concerned. I've gone there and I've got lots of Borough mates, and I was really hoping they went up. And Hackney, key player for them. They were just saying what a key player he was for them. And they knew that if they didn't go up, he was going to leave. So he was going to go. He's gone to Everton. So that's a good buy for you. Let's just see how he does in the Premier League, because obviously it's a big step up. A couple of other players I've got to talk about. Pickford, I've got to say that because I've just come back from the World Cup for 7 weeks. I was out there for 7 weeks. Had a lot of fun. A lot of fun in Mexico. The USA. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But listen, you can't not have fun if you're away watching football with your mates. So Pickford, brilliant. Brilliant for England, brilliant goalkeeper. I like Pickford because he does the business. So it's quite frustrating when you play against him sometimes, because obviously you want him to let goals in like other keepers do. But listen, still great. So I've got to give him a tip my hat to him as well. And another player I just got to quickly talk about is Beto. If you look, our owner Matthew Benham did a podcast with the guy from Men in Blazers, and he did a podcast at MIT, and he talked about Beto, and he used it because he was talking about stats, how we use stats in football and stuff. But it was a really interesting podcast. Check it out. And he talked about the fact that Beto is the type of player that we would buy, because Beto creates a lot of chances. And even if he doesn't score the chances, we're a team that if you're creating the chances, that's positive, because they could believe that you could always improve that player as long as you're creating the chances. If you've got players that literally have one chance, one goal, then we're a little bit like not sure about that, because if they don't get that chance, then they're not going to score. They prefer players who have 15 chances and score two goals out of those 15 chances. And that's why people like Neil Maupay, there's a lot of players that we bought who are big chance creators. So yeah, Beto, you got a good player there in Beto. Predicted finishes for Brentford. I did a little review in the Guardian newspaper, and I put us down as sixth, and everyone went, "Oh, blimey, Bill!" And and I thought, yeah, I was feeling good on the day, so I've just done this because I thought, listen, we finished eighth last season when everyone thought we were going to get relegated, and we are technically are a better side, but then you can argue that the league is a stronger league. But then you have to argue also there's been a lot of changes in teams in the league with players and managers. So it's a bit of up and down. So I thought, tell you what, I always go to 10th, 14th, 16th, when we came in the league, 17th. But I thought, let's just not go for it. Let's just go for sixth. Why not? Because to me, in a strange way, the positions between about fifth and sixth and about 14th, it's actually normally quite tight. So let's just say that we actually have a season where everything comes together. As for Everton, I've gone, you've got in a few players, good manager. I've gone 12th again, which is a sort of mid-table position, which I don't know if you're going to be happy with that, but I think that, Everton are a couple of seasons ago were down the relegation zone, but now I don't think you're going to be anywhere near that. I think that you're going to do okay. So I think 12th is all that. And coming down to who's going to get relegated, I've put down my first choice is going to be Fulham. Right, our big rivals down there. Look, they're all over the place at the moment now. He says. So let's just put Fulham down for relegation. Ipswich probably a bit lazy. It's just that I was looking at who's getting, them coming up. They spent quite a lot of money, to be fair. So they might actually kind of fight their way out of it. But I'm going to put Ipswich and Hull. At the moment now, Hull, they may have the fighting spirit to get out of it, but it's going to be quite tough. And just looking how they've done, I don't want to be cliched saying, "Oh, the teams that come up are going to go down." But for me, I'm thinking Hull are looking at compared to the other teams around them, a team that's going down. It might be quite interesting to throw Newcastle into the mix because they're all over the place at the moment now. But we'll see. I can't have four teams going down though, and going up. I tried to put I tried to sort of shake things up a little bit and just say, "Oh no, Manchester City," which is pretty boring. I can go up, but the reality is that Arsenal, what they've done this close season, I think they're going to be. I wouldn't say unstoppable, but they're going to be hard to beat, and I think they're going to be really potty to get that second title. So I'm going to put Arsenal down as the title winners. Anyway, I'm Billy the B Grant. Thank you for inviting me on your channel again. Can't wait to come to Everton. Great away day. It's going to be good. All my pals going to come down there, spend the weekend as we do. When you come down to Brentford, don't forget to go to any pub. Wear your colours. As long as you got the manners, as we say, you're going to be good. Loads of pubs down the river. Just come down there and enjoy yourself. And also enjoy yourself and have yourselves a good season. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Adi Packham. I'm the presenter of the Albion Royal radio show here in a hot and warm and sweltering Brighton. And I'm here to give you my thoughts on the upcoming season. Well, as far as the Albion are concerned, it's a little bit mixed. Despite qualifying for Europe last season, which was always going to be the aim, the fact that we're in the Conference League feels a little bit of a disappointment. That's not that we're being snobbish about the competition. Any European competition that we qualify for is always going to be a bonus. It's only the second time in our entire history that we've been in European competition, so that's obviously a massive feather in our cap. But that 13 game run in the middle of the season with only one win, and the fact that there was a lot more on offer. We could have qualified for the Champions League. We should have qualified for the Europa League, which is the competition that we were in last time. So it feels a bit of disappointment because Sunderland kind of like leapfrogged us at the last minute, and that last game of the season against Man United, it kind of felt like a little bit of after the Lord Mayor's show, really. It's classic example of leaving too many points on the table, and like I said, that mid-season run put paid to any of our loftier aims. So going into this season, it does feel a little bit flat. We kick our first ball in anger on Thursday night in the Conference League in a qualifying game away in the Arctic Circle in Tromsø. But we're going into that with what feels like a giant Danny Welbeck shaped hole. Losing Danny was a shock. It was unexpected. It was certainly a player that we thought would end his career at the Albion, and what he gave us, as well as the 13 goals that he contributed on the pitch. There are certain players that contribute more off the pitch as well, and everyone knows the Danny Welbeck's game. The runs off the ball, stretching the game, the high energy, athletic performances that he's given us over the last 6 years, which is, it's been wonderful to watch. And he is a Rolls Royce of a footballer. And I really loved him, and I'm really, really disappointed to see him go, particularly to that poisonous club in West London, who, most Brighton fans really, really, really do not like. But, he's gone. The king is dead. Long live the king. We go into it. We've had some interesting business, most of it defensively. We've seen Luka Vuskovic arrive on a club record transfer of 46 million from Spurs. Zadok Johanna has arrived from AIK. Costina from Olympiacos. Pascal Struijk has come in from Leeds. Michael Zavoda from Venezia. And breaking news, we've just signed Promise David, who is a player I know very little about, but his figures for USG look pretty good. Obviously, we have a link with Union Saint-Gilloise, with our owner Tony Bloom having a share in that club, and the players that we've either put out on loan there or signed from there have generally been pretty good. Dennis Undav, who shines in the World Cup for Germany this season, last summer, he was a player we signed from it and really wish we still had. And a certain Karu Matoma also came in from USG. So, there is... I'm hoping that David shows a lot of promise. Obviously, there's been some players going through the outdoor as well. Jan-Paul van Hecke went to Spurs to join up with his old boss, Roberto De Zerbi. Diego Coppola, who was on loan at Paris FC last year, has joined them permanently, which is a bit of a disappointment because from what we saw of him, he was a really, really promising player and one that we'd hoped would develop with us. But obviously, his patience wore thin at lack of opportunities. Carl Rushworth has joined Coventry permanently. He's a goalkeeper who we've watched. We go and watch a lot of non-league football when we're not watching the Albion. And my local team, Worthing, had Carl on loan for a little bit. And everywhere he's been player of the season everywhere. Walsall, Coventry, somewhere else, which I can't remember. So, yeah, it's disappointing to see him go, but, it's what it is. He's been permanently on loan for a very, very long time. So he wasn't going to budge. Bart Verbruggen is number one. So we move on. So in regards to the Toffees, I've only actually just looked at this, and it's actually pretty impressive. Brennan Johnson, he's a player who flatters to deceive, isn't he? Obviously, he came from that burning smell up the road in South London with that direct swap deal with Dwight McNeil, I don't know what he's going to offer because he can be really, really hit or really, really miss. I guess you will see. Obviously, Christian Norgard, he's got experience, didn't get a look in at Arsenal. The one that I'm really excited about is Hayden Hackney, though. He's a player that we were linked with at the Albion, and 16 million quid from Middlesbrough. That's pocket change in this current climate, isn't it? But he could be the standout there. I mean, Tyreek George, we've seen a little bit from at Chelsea, so we'll see. We'll see what it gives. In regards to where we're going to finish, well, I don't know. It's going to be a strange season. I think there's so many managerial changes. We've got Chelsea really, really strengthening and bringing in the experience which they've lacked. They could go strong. I think Arsenal, it's their title to lose. And if you finish above Arsenal, you win the league, I think, this season. But we'll see. There's a lot of teams in transition. I don't think the winning points total is going to be anywhere near as high as it has been. So we'll actually see. Relegation, I think it's difficult, very hard to look past the three that came up, isn't it? So we'll see what happens with that. Newcastle could be in trouble. Obviously, we hope Crystal Palace will be dragged into it because it's Crystal Palace. Or Chelsea. Can we relegate Chelsea? I'd really, really like. Yes, I'm going to relegate Chelsea. Down with them. Down with that sort of thing. But in terms of our two clubs, Albion, I think we're finished above you. I think probably lower than last season because of I think there's going to be a lot of points taken off everybody this year. I think the likes of Spurs, Chelsea, who were terrible last year, are going to improve. I think we'll finish 10th. I think Everton will finish 12th. And yeah, that's it. So I'm Aidy Packham. I'm from the Albion Roar on Brighton's Radio Reverb, 97.2 FM, online at radioreverb.com on DAB. And of course, on our podcast. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So thanks for listening and see ya.
I'm Charlie from Blue Brother CFC. My thoughts going into the season in general, I feel positive, confident for Chelsea. There's a real good feeling around the club for the first time in a number of years. Xabi Alonso's come in. We've done some good business. We've backed the manager. Obviously got the big signing with Morgan Rogers. And so I think there's a real positive feel around the place for Chelsea. The season in general, I think it's an exciting one other than Arsenal. It's all up for grabs amongst the bigger sides in the league, all with new managers, all doing, various degrees of business so far in the summer. Lots of new faces. And so, yes, it's very, very open. I think that's going to lend to an exciting season, very much so. In terms of Chelsea summer business, I'm happy with the incomings. We've added some much needed experience in Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck, who can contribute at times on the pitch, but can be equally as important off the pitch for us with this young squad in terms of driving standards, setting standards. Then you've got your marquee signing in Morgan Rogers, which I think is a brilliant piece of business for Chelsea. Exactly the sort of player that we've been looking for, and hopefully he can really contribute in the attack with him and Palmer in those twin 10 positions behind Joao Pedro. We've added good defensive depth. Maxence Lacroix is a really good signing from Crystal Palace. I think he's going to add much needed height and physicality to our back line as well as that Premier League know-how. We've added Pep Chavarria, who's a bit of an unknown from Spain, but Xabi Alonso really wanted him for that left wing-back role. And then we've got Marco Palestra, who's been a revelation in pre-season as well, right wing-back, and someone that I think could be a bit of a surprise for Chelsea this season. Obviously, we still need to get rid of a lot of players between now and the end of the window. We need to sort out the Enzo Fernandez saga. And we could ideally do with another midfielder anyway, and another centre-back, provided we can get rid of the likes of Tosin and Disasi and whatnot. In terms of my thoughts on Everton, I think obviously last season was disappointing. David Moyes still there. There's been some decent business. I like Hayden Hackney as a midfielder. I think he's done a really good job at Middlesbrough, and I think he's more than ready to step up to the Premier League. And David Moyes and Everton seems like a good place for him. You've got Kieran Dewsbury-Hall still there, who is looking good. Tyreek George made permanent. He's looked sharp in the pre-season from what I've seen. And it's massive so far to have kept hold of Iliman Ndiaye. I still feel you need to add a bit in the attacking areas as well. Everton could do with a few more signings to help beef the squad up, strengthen the squad, add some more quality to it. But I think it's been largely positive so far for Everton. In terms of predicted finish for Chelsea, I'm going to go third for Chelsea. Everton is tough. If they can add a bit more quality, then it might help. I tipped them as dark horses for a European spot last season, and that ultimately didn't happen. I think Everton will be solid this season. I think they'll be better. I'm going to go for a 10th place finish for Everton. In terms of who gets relegated, I can't really see past the 3 promoted sides. I just think the gap in quality is too big now with the 3 sides that have come up to what you're looking at in the league. Spurs aren't going to be down there again. Forest have got Glasgow now. I don't see them being down there. I just don't see any of the existing Premier League teams being worse than the 3 that come up. And in terms of who wins the league, I think you're very much looking, it's very difficult to look past Arsenal, unfortunately. So I think it will be Arsenal retaining the league. City could maybe push them close, but they're a big unknown. I don't know what Chelsea are going to do. Liverpool, Man United, I don't see them contending. So, yeah, unless anything goes majorly wrong for Arsenal, then you're looking at them retaining the title, unfortunately.
Hi, guys. Jack here from Sky Blue Fans TV. We're very excited about a Premier League season. I'm only 26 years old, and it's the first time that Coventry City are back in the Premier League after 25 years. This is the first in my lifetime. And I'm recording this a week before we head to Arsenal. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I really, really can't. Coventry City, yeah, we are obviously, like I say, brand new to the Premier League. We don't know what we're going to get, but you guys don't know what we're going to be. You don't know how much of a threat we're going to be. We've had plenty of new signings. We've got 6 in so far. We made permanent the loan deals of Frank Onyeka and Carl Rushworth quite early on in the transfer window. We bought in Loom Chowner, winger from Burnley, a year's of Premier League experience. Hopefully, he's going to do the business. He scored his first goal in pre-season against Monaco just this weekend gone. We turned Monaco over. We beat them 2-0, could have been 3-0. We were much the better side. We've also played Espanyol. We beat them 3-1 after going 1-0 down in the first half. We've had a very, very strong pre-season, and I think that's put a lot of confidence in a lot of Coventry City fans going into this season. We've brought in Aurel Amenda, 6'4", maybe taller, centre-half, Swiss, was at the World Cup. He's come in from Frankfurt, and he looks the business. He looks exactly what we want to do, playing out from the back, and is going to be rock solid. He's got a turn of pace as well. Caleb Yarenchi, he was looked at by Real Madrid, Manchester United, and other clubs as well, but he's picked Coventry City. I think this is a bit of a coup from us, just under £30 million before the add-ons. And honestly, he looks to have transformed our midfield already. We're not going to be turned over in the midfield as easily as other teams have been over the past few years. This is almost a Granit Xhaka-esque signing for us that's going to really solidify our Premier League position this season coming. I'm sure of that. And Gustavo Hamer, we've obviously had him for 3 seasons before he went to Sheffield United, spent 3 years there, a year of Premier League experience. He was ready for the Premier League 3 years ago when we let him go, and he's still good enough to play Premier League football now. Championship player of the season last year with his 10 assists and similar amount of goals. He was Sheffield United's player of the season when he played in the Premier League. So I only see that as positives. We've been linked to 2 strikers as well today. They're not done deals, but Taiwo Awoniyi from Nottingham Forest, who's had 4 seasons in the Premier League and a year of Bundesliga experience. I'm looking forward to him signing. I think he's exactly what we need, tall, powerful, and knows where the net is. And Siddiqui Sharif, a young striker who's been at Fenerbahce. So I'm excited to see what these bring in. It looks like we're going to do more business, a left back, maybe a centre back. Who knows? I think there's 2 or 3 more to come in from Coventry. So I'm very, very excited. And do you know what? The pre-season we've had, the signings we've made and are still making, I think this keeps us up. I really do. I see Ipswich and Hull really struggling personally, but I think Coventry City stay up. Look, I'm sure all fans of promoted teams say exactly the same thing. But I'm just really hopeful. I'm really positive, and I'm just really, really looking forward to the season. As for Everton, you've made a few signings yourself. I'll be honest, I haven't kept too close of an eye on all of your business, but Brennan Johnson seems like an upgrade from Dwight McNeil. I know he's only just been to Palace for half a season, but 2 European trophies in 2 years. he must be a decent player. So I see him as an upgrade for you guys. That's one that worries me. He scored against us for both Forest in the Championship and Tottenham when we played them in the EFL Cup a couple of seasons ago. Christian Norgard, Brentford and Arsenal, solid holding midfielder. I think that will really help you. And Hayden Hackney, who we know a lot about, we've come up against him for 3 seasons for Middlesbrough. Fantastic in the Championship. He will go places, I'm sure. There was links to Coventry, to be honest, at the beginning of the window, but I think he was always setting his sights on an established Premier League club in Everton, and he'll thrive in the Premier League. I'm sure he'll get a little bit more time on the ball. He'll be able to pick the passes and dictate the play exactly how you want him to be. So I see Everton comfortably midfield in the table. Probably bottom half. I'm going to say 10th to 13th for Everton, only because I've got my team, Coventry City, in 14th this season. That's my official prediction. I've not done the full Premier League table yet. We're actually going to do that as a channel over the next week, just before Arsenal. But I do see Arsenal winning the Premier League. I hope we can upset them on opening night, champions versus champions. But typically, a top Premier League side playing a newly promoted side into the Premier League, it's a walk in the park for them, especially at home. And I really hope it's not. But I see Arsenal beating us, unfortunately. And I see Arsenal going on to retain that Premier League title. City don't look as strong. And I don't think any of the other challengers are just going to be good enough to take that from Arsenal. Going down, like I say, I have Ipswich, I have Hull. And I'm not really too sure. People are putting Palace, Fulham down there. I think Forest are going to really struggle. Morgan Gibbs-White's going to be their shining light, as he always is, but losing Elliot Anderson in that midfield, they're really going to struggle through that midfield, and I see a lot of teams dictating the tempo. I know they like to play defensively and a lot on the counter-attack with down the flanks with their pace, but I see other teams being too much, and I see Forest going down. So there you go. That's my official predictions. I can't wait to be in the Premier League. And I hope we really, really give it a good go. And I'm sure Frank Lampard and the team that we've got have got vast Premier League experience. And I really see us finishing in the mid-table, not doing a Sunderland. I'm not expecting us to get into Europe, but I see us establishing ourselves, at least for one season, as a new Premier League team. Thanks a lot for having me, guys. I'm Jack from Sky Blue Fans TV.
What's going on, people? It's Steve here from Back of the Nest with a quick season preview. Thank you for having me on the channel once again. As always, make sure to check out our preview, which Lou will be recording. Unfortunately, I've been very busy this week and the last couple of weeks, so I couldn't do it, but Lou will be doing it, so check that out. And yeah, let's get started with Palace going into the season. We've changed managers. PSR just come in. Oliver Glasner's left Palace and then eventually ended up joining Forest, and we've signed a manager that gave PSG a real push last year, with him being the manager of Lens, and also won the French equivalent of the FA Cup. So he's come with glory, which is important for Palace. Sounds crazy, but a manager that knows how to win based on our last couple of seasons. Fans are eager to try and have hope of more, so that gives us a bit more hope. And yeah, we're going to have a little transition, I think, especially at the start of the season, because of the amount of players that we lost to the World Cup. A lot of them joined back late. So we got fitness issues. We've also got issues of players. Despite us playing the same formation as Glasner, there are different approaches to the game. So the players need to get used to Sarge's demands. And that's going to take longer than a week. So I think the first few games of the season could be a struggle. But yeah, let's wait and see. So we're not 100% ready for the start of the season, but I think we'll get there eventually. So I'm not overly concerned about it. And yeah, we made a few signings as well in the summer. Tomiyasu on a free. If he stays fit, would be an excellent signing, I think. But that's a big if. We've signed Oscar Mingueza as well. And he's more of a right wing back, which, I mean, would maybe raise a few eyebrows for Everton fans, because you've been linked to Daniel Munoz, who I think will be leaving the club this summer, because we also signed Anan Kalali, who's a right wing back as well. So we've got 3 very decent options, and I think Munoz is going to be the one that's going to have to leave. And me as a Palace fan, I'm not mad about it because I think this will be the most that we can get for him if it's this summer. I think next summer his value drops, and age isn't necessarily on his side as well. So yeah, we've already signed his replacement, so I think he'll be leaving. And in terms of Everton, my quick thoughts on Everton. You've signed a few players, one of them being Brandon Johnson. And I don't want to sound like an hater or dull, but I was actually excited when Johnson joined Palace. But arguably, not even arguably, for me, in my opinion, he is the worst signing Palace have made in terms of value. I saw nothing from him to give me hope. And it wasn't only me. I think that's the case with Palace because you don't sign a player for £35 million and then sell him 6 months down the line. And we just had to cut our losses. So, yeah, there was nothing about his game that I could say, you know what, you got a player there. Off the ball, he was bad. On the ball, he offered nothing significant. I think maybe our style of play didn't benefit him. But I just think he's a limited footballer. He's very direct, which probably helps David Moyes' side. And hopefully if he's in the right positions, then for you lot, he can score goals. But he just wasn't for Palace. It just didn't work out. And so, yeah, we'll see how that works for Everton. But we also get Dwight McNeil, which I didn't mention. I'm more excited about him than Johnson because I don't have any expectations on Dwight McNeil. And he simply cannot be worse for Palace than Johnson was. He might be the same, but he can't be worse. So, yeah, and we've already seen him play in our last preseason game against Freiburg. And it was much more enjoyable to see that a player wasn't scared to get on the ball. So, yeah. Let's see who wins out of that. Palace have made a loss anyway, so it's a straight swap, but it's not our problem to deal with now. And if Moyes gets the best out of him, he can score goals in the Premier League, but it just wasn't going to be the case for Palace. And then I've also seen that Hayden Hackney, he was linked to Palace. You've signed him. I think that's a bit of a smart a transfer, especially for Everton. We've signed championship players as well and developed them on, so I think that's a smart bit of business. So I think you've got a few players through the door that should help, especially with quality and depth. But I think the key for Everton this year is building on, because before Moyes, it just felt like staying up. And now you got the new stadium. You had a decent season last year. You just have to have another decent season, be patient. And I think the goal should be trying to push for European spots. And if you can get that, then that would be amazing. If you can't, as long as that is the objective and keep pushing towards there, then eventually it will click. And things are looking up, which is good to see. And also, in terms of where I expect both teams to finish, I think Palace, I'd be happy with Palace finishing 17th and Europa League. Honestly, the Premier League in the last couple of years has meant nothing due to the glories that we've had in other competitions. But realistically, I can see Palace and Everton being very close to each other between 12th to 13th. But Everton probably should finish higher than Palace due to the fact that you don't have no European football and we do. So, yeah, your focus should be in the Premier League and cup competition. So, if Palace were going to be finishing 12th or 13th, I could see Everton maybe finishing 1 or 2 spots above it, which, of course, wouldn't be the position you would want to be in for European spots. But hopefully you can have a good cup run, because trust me, once you experience a good cup run, you'll realise this league is just pointless. It's pointless. And teams winning the league, I expect Arsenal to win the league because everyone else is in a transition. So I think they're just the most ready side to win the league. And I think the 3 that got up, Hull, Coventry and Ipswich, I think they go back down as well. So yeah, I don't think there's any surprises, but we'll see. I think the first place and maybe relegation battle, no, first place I think is confirmed. Maybe the relegation battle could be a bit of a surprise, but there's a lot of uncertainty, which will make the Premier League season exciting this year, where everyone feels like changing their managers, bringing in new players, apart from Arsenal. So yeah, it should be good. But all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully catch up with you guys again soon.
Hello, this is Jack Kelly, Fulham fan and journalist covering the club. My YouTube channel is Jack Kelly, journalist covering Fulham FC. My thoughts on this season, it's going to be strange, isn't it? There's so many changes managerial-wise, Fulham obviously being one of those. Marco Silva out, Alvaro Arbeloa in. However, the business has been brilliant for Fulham so far this summer. Compare that to this time last year. We were leading up to the first game against Brighton, having signed 1 free signing, one free transfer in Benjamin Lecomte, who is a backup for Bernd Leno. Fast forward a year, and Fulham have made 4 signings this summer. Yoniku Sisari on a permanent deal after having a loan spell last season. Again, I don't think he's going to make too much of an impact this season, with obviously Fulham also signing Gonzalo Garcia, striker that worked under Arbeloa for Real Madrid, and the same goes for Cesar Palacios. Now, and also Shea Charles. Shea Charles, a signing that I identified back in the beginning of the summer. I was like, oh, Fulham should go after him. Didn't think that was going to happen. And then we did sign him. Leeds obviously were interested as well, but Fulham got there and got the deal done. And what a player he is as well. I've seen a lot of Fulham in pre-season, obviously. And I think what you can take away from Fulham and how they're going to look this season is slightly different. Same formation, but the system's slightly different. Much higher line, which obviously brings risk, but very, very, very fluid, possession-based football, high pressing, high turnover, wanting to win the ball back very, very quickly after losing it. And I think games watching Fulham are going to be very, very exciting. I think Fulham are going to score a lot of goals. I also think at the same time Fulham might concede quite a few goals, and that obviously brings an air of unpredictability about it, which basically sums up the whole Premier League right now. I really don't know how it's going to go for basically nearly all the teams, because there's so much change, and I think it's really, really hard to predict. The 3 coming up in Coventry, Hull and Ipswich, they've all spent fairly big in the summer, and they're looking very ambitious, and it'd be easy to say, oh, they're going to go straight back down. But I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I think the summer business has been good. You compare it to last year, like I said, and it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? We've spent some money. We're definitely still in the market. We've got 3 days before the season starts on Friday. So yeah, we are looking for a centre back. We're looking for a winger. We're looking for a right back. Things are going to change, and that's obviously the fullbacks are so key to this system, because they are the ones getting high up the pitch and involved in attack. In fact, they scored loads of goals over pre-season. The fullbacks, Robinson, Castagna, Ryan Sessegnon, etc. So yeah, excited, nervous, but excited about the season ahead. For Everton, their business has been pretty good. The Brennan Johnson deal with Dwight McNeil is still pretty baffling, more from a Palace point of view. Obviously, he was pretty poor for Palace. I think he will thrive at a new club where I just think it just didn't work out at Selhurst, and obviously Dwight McNeil coming the other way. I know Palace were after him earlier in the year, or was it in January, and it never materialised, or it got to a stage where it could have been done and didn't get done, and obviously there was a bit of a fallout from that. But I do find this one interesting. Brennan Johnson is obviously a great winger, but has not been able to show that for quite some time, and I wonder whether David Moyes will get the best out of him. It's a good deal for Everton. I think it's a better deal for Everton than it was for Palace. Merlin Roll, obviously, signing on a permanent deal. Didn't see loads of him last season, but hopefully for Everton fans, he can play more of a part. And we'll see. I think he's a good player. Tariq George, a player who was at Motspur Park, Fulham's training ground, on deadline day last summer and didn't sign because Fulham scuppered it up in the last minute, and he ended up going to Everton in January on loan, and now he's signed permanently. Again, a good squad player, someone who can play wide, down the middle as well. Good player, and it would have been good if Fulham got that deal done, but now it's not necessarily too deep for us. Hayden Hackney is the signing that excites me most for Everton. I was not surprised that Hayden Hackney got a move so early on in the summer. I was fairly surprised with how, sort of, from my perspective, how easy Everton had that deal. They sort of had a free run at him, and I thought there would be many, many more clubs in the swim for him. But I think it's a terrific signing. And to be fair, the two midfielders sort of shone last season in the Championship, in my eyes, or two of the midfielders were Hayden Hackney and Shea Charles. Charles goes to Fulham, Hackney goes to Everton. Happy days for everyone all round. And then Christian Norgard, really sensible David Moyes type signing, another central defensive midfielder, centre mid, who will be a nice solid option. If you keep Iliman Ndiaye, I think that would be fantastic. I think he is one of the best players, one of the best wingers in the Premier League on his day, and certainly was very, very, very good against Fulham last season. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, of course, still doing great things. He's now changed numbers as well, which is obviously great for Everton. And Beto and Barry, I would have thought maybe they wanted to get another striker in Everton because the Beto Barry, I've never been too convinced by both of them, but also they are scoring a fair amount of goals, and they have scored a fair amount of goals. So if it's still working, then why not? And there's obviously typical David Moyes sort of strikers as well. Prediction, finish for your team. This is really tough. I've said like all summer I think Fulham are going to finish 12th, and I then did my 1 to 20s earlier, and I put Fulham in 10th. Slightly optimistic. I think we are quite an easy prediction to have us struggling. Oh, they lost Marcus Silva, they lost Harry Wilson, they lost Raul Jimenez, blah, blah, blah. But I still think that Fulham have reacted well in the market. I think that the style of play is really good. And I think that Fulham are going to be competitive next season. I don't necessarily think we'll be down there for sure. And for Everton as well, I think they'll have a good season as well. Obviously, they're not in Europe, so they might have a better league campaign. But I'm really struggling to, again, individually put teams in certain positions. But I think I went with Everton in 13th, and people might say, well, we're definitely finishing above Fulham. It's just my opinion. And also, there's a bit of bias in there as well, as there would be with Everton fans who think that Everton will finish above Fulham as well. So I think both sides will want to have cup runs and definitely have good seasons. And I think that Fulham and Everton will have good seasons and will remain in the Premier League as well. Who do I think is going to win the league? I can't really look beyond Arsenal. I was really impressed with them in the Community Shield. They've added well as well, and I just think Arsenal will win it again. That doesn't thrill me at all to say that. And going down, I actually have Hull, Coventry, and Sunderland. I think Sunderland might struggle with Europe, and I don't think they've necessarily added too well to their squad. Their depth is a bit of a worry, but also you never know. They've got a good atmosphere. They had a really good home form last season. We'll see what happens at the end of the day. That is my prediction.
Hi there, Toffee fans. My name is Christian Sorensen, and I am from the Hull and Back podcast. Thoughts going into the season? It's always a great question to ask any Hull fan, because you're probably going to get a lot of different answers. I think we kind of can all agree on we're excited, obviously. We're under no illusion about the challenge ahead. It's been 10 years since Hull City last played in the Premier League. The journey back to the Premier League hasn't obviously exactly been straightforward. There's been a lot of things going on. Last season especially, we went into the Championship as a club that only survived relegation the previous season on goal difference. So if you told most people at the start of the season we'd be back in the Premier League, they probably would have just laughed at you. But then Sergei Yukirevich came in and completely changed the mentality of the club. He brought stability, discipline, belief, not only within the squad, but the club itself, that probably was lost or wasn't there before. The coaching staff deserve huge amount of credit as well, because we went from being written off as relegation candidates to finishing 6th. Winning the playoffs and getting back into the Premier League is just unreal. And I think it's important going forward into this season because we've kind of been here before. We've already experienced what it's like to have everyone outside of the club telling us you're going to fail, you're going to get relegated. And now, once again, pretty much everyone outside of Hull City is saying the exact same thing as last season. So we are currently number 1 favourites for relegation. I mean, the predictions, the data, the bookmakers, pretty much everything and everyone is telling you that Hull City are going to go straight back down. And to be honest, we understand that. We're not sitting here pretending all of a sudden we're going to become a mid-table Premier League club. The Premier League is a completely different animal. The quality is obviously higher, and we're going to have to go to games where we're just going to be absolutely tested. But first and foremost, the objective is survival. But I think what outsiders might be underestimating is the mentality the club has actually built over the last season. I mean, there's genuine belief around this kind of group now. We've got a manager who's just completely bought into the club. The coaching staff, the players clearly believe in it. The squad is just, well, it's already kind of written off everything by proving everybody wrong from last season. And the fans are obviously buying into it as well. And then you've got Ajit, our owner, Ajit Jali, who, let's be honest, has a certain level of craziness about the whole thing. You just never quite know what's going on or what he's going to do next. But you can't question his ambition. He's someone who's not going to sit back and accept Hull just being happy they're in the Premier League. He's kind of going to go and push for it. And I think that kind of combination could make us like a really interesting team to kind of watch this season. Because we're not going into the season with the kind of pressure that everyone's expecting for other teams. Obviously, there's that pressure of staying in the league, but no one really expects anything from Hull City. So the opposition fans are going to look at the fixture and think, hey, look, 3 points. We're not going to be those whipping boys, or that's what you may think. We're going to be the team that kind of everyone is expecting to beat, but we kind of like that kind of outlook on us, because we have really technically got nothing to lose. We are in the Premier League after an unbelievable last season, and if Jukanovic, Sergei can keep that team mentality that we've already seen, and the coaching staff can continue getting more and more out of the players that we just didn't expect out of the players when we had them originally. And kind of these new signings that we're just getting in settled quick enough, I generally think we can surprise a few teams. I'm not going to sit here and say Hull are going to comfortably survive. That would be ridiculous. It's going to be incredibly difficult. There'll be periods where we kind of question whether we should be in the league to begin with, or kind of question if we can even do it. But we've kind of already seen this group of players do something that nobody already expected of them. So we're kind of going into this season rather more than fearful. We're kind of going in there with that kind of optimism that everyone seems to think Hull are already relegated. So I kind of quite like to see what would happen with this kind of group of players, with our manager, the coaching staff, and the slightly, obviously, crazy ownership. We've generally got nothing to lose. I mean, if we can stay in touching distance of safety for the final few months, I mean, generally, we could give it a go. I mean, I'll take anything right now that would say Hull are going to be fine. But don't just write us off yet. Thoughts on our summer business is so far so good. There's some frustration of how quickly we're getting players through the door. It's not like Hull have been, standing still. We've already signed 11 players, which is really, really good for us at the same time for the depth, but it's a really interesting approach to the recruitment. There's that somewhat definite kind of element of what Sunderland did last season in terms of the philosophy. We're not just going out and buying the established Premier League or the top-end Championship players. We're looking at quality, the potential, the sell-on future, the value of that as well. You've got someone like 18-year-old Lucas Harrington, an Australian international, youngest Australian to ever start a World Cup knockout. It's unreal. Noble Mendy, our record signing, 21-year-old Senegalese international, 28 La Liga appearances last season as well. He's left-footed, strong in the air. Huge asset to the club at the moment. Brilliant on and off for that kind of asset as well, moving forward, or great potential value. There's players, that were, like I said, we've added depth and competition as well. So it kind of gives us that stability if any sort of injuries that we've always played with and are still played with right now. And even the experienced players that we've brought in, like Jack Butland, Matt Target, Morita as well from Sporting CP. Experience is there for a very kind of, I want to say, relatively young squad when we come to look of it as well, especially with the new signings that we have been coming in. And the unreal frustration, I guess, is the speed of recruitment. With Manchester United coming up in the opening game this weekend, fans obviously want the players through doors early so they can have more time to gel and understand, like, you can have its system, whole system. I mean, the manager has even admitted that he'd prefer someone to be in a little bit sooner. The club has indicated they are also potentially looking at another 5, 6, 7 incoming. Realistically, we need them, in certain positions, especially. And I would say the players that we are looking in these kind of final 5 or 6 that we will be getting through the door, these are the ones that would be mainly replacing the players from last season that wouldn't be cover. So overall, yeah, we're pretty happy with where we're at, but we could kind of do with a few more, and we just wish it was done a little bit sooner, just to give the club that kind of advantage of gelling as well on from there. Thoughts on Everton, Moyes, signings, players for this season? Look, Moyes and Everton, or the Moyesiah, as you want to call them, it's bread and butter. They just go together. I grew up watching, Moyes, Fegs, and Wenger, who all were that kind of long-term managers growing up. What was it, 2002 area. Moyes was kind of the face of Everton for over a decade. So when he came back in 2025, I think it was Jan 2025 he came back, you couldn't have asked for anything more when Moyes was coming back, because you were flirting with the relegation, and in kind of classic David Moyes fashion, he made you solid again, and stable. Stability was kind of one of the issues you're having through that kind of gap period. And he brought you really good. I think, what was it, you finished 13th? And at one stage you were pushing for European football. So I think this season you're going to do the same. I think you are going to be pushing. I mean, you've made some good additions this summer as well. One in particular I like is Hayden Hackney. Now, the reason why I like Hayden Hackney is because obviously we saw him last season at Middlesbrough, and when he was playing, he's got that aura, he's got that Premier League about him, and he just looks so comfortable on the ball. He was a level cut above everybody else, and I just think at the times he's going to be absolutely fantastic, and he was a player I wish Hull City would have spent the money on. I really truly do, but at Everton I think he's going to flourish. And I think you've got an absolute brilliant player there. So you've got Moyes back where he belongs. You've got more of a stability. You're solid. Your recruitment's going well. I think you're going to be capable of surprising a lot of people moving forward. Predicted finish for Everton. Obviously, though, I've said, look, you're going to be trying to push for Europe. I still think you're going to finish somewhere around 8th, 9th, 10th. You're going to be in the top 10. Put it that way. I just think you've got that type of squad, that kind of fan base, kind of that. And like I said, you've got the Moyesiah, so you just never know what's going to happen. The more and more you guys kind of do what you've been doing, the better you're just going to keep getting. And for Hull, I'm going to be more optimistic than what the bookmakers and the data say. I understand we are kind of the relegation candidates, but we're so used to being written off, and I don't think any data can account for the genius and brilliance of Sergei Yakinovich. So I'm going to say 16th, because I don't think that's unreasonable at all. And I think if someone offered me 16th right now, I would just bite their hand off and take it. Who's going to get relegated? I'm probably going to upset a few people with this. I'm going to go with Ipswich Town. They're a difficult one for me. I mean, they've changed the manager. They've lost some key players and huge influential players from their promotion. They have spent a lot of money trying to replace that quality, but I just don't see it. So I believe Ipswich are going to be in trouble. One big one for me as well is going to be Fulham. I believe Fulham are going to get relegated this season. It's probably the most interesting one. They've lost what I would say is one of the best managers that they've ever had. He's brought them from being a relegation / I'd say they were a championship club, in all honesty. And they've also now lost a lot and sold their best players. So, yeah, they've brought players in, but I just don't see the quality being there that they've brought in to kind of replace us. I feel Fulham are going to have a really, really tricky season, and definitely going to be in that kind of relegation zone. The next two, I'm saying two because I'm stuck between Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have a really great core of a team. They are a really good team. But they've just lost their two biggest attacking threats. They haven't replaced them with that kind of level of quality. And they have kind of a small squad. So if they get any injuries, they're going to put themselves in major trouble. And I think they will struggle. I do, just because of that. The other one is Nottingham Forest. I mean, Glasner coming in, inheriting a dressing room, that's just crazy at the best of times. And now they've got this kind of PSR financial rules limit as well. I mean, the forced sale pretty much kind of fixed that kind of issue in a way, but I just think the craziness that's going on at Forest may be their hindrance. If I had to lock it in, I'm definitely saying Ipswich, Fulham, and I'm gonna just go with Forest just because, unfortunately, I think the job that Glaston's got to do is just a bit much, but I wouldn't be surprised if Crystal Palace swap that over. And who's going to win the league? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say Arsenal. They're the defending champions. They've kept the manager. They've not really lost anybody. It's more along the lines of they've strengthened their squad. I just don't see any weakness. So it's really painful for me to say. But I think Arsenal are going to win the Premier League once again. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great season. Looking forward to seeing you. And I'm going to say it, up the Tigers.
Hello to the Toffee Blues. My name is Seb from the Blue Monday podcast, focusing on Ipswich Town. And I guess thoughts going into the season, pretty optimistic and quite hopeful, to be honest. 2 years ago was a bruising experience, obviously relegated with a very low points total, but I think all Town fans knew we'd got promoted too soon. It was essentially still a League One setup off the pitch. We kind of went down the route of signing the Championship All-Stars team, I guess with a view to having a go, and if we get relegated, we're in a great place to bounce back, which is what we did. This time around, it feels very different. We were outside of the Premier League, obviously, for 22, 23 years before we got promoted 2 years ago, and I think we'd just forgotten how crucial things like physicality, pace, and all that kind of stuff are at this level. So this year's recruitment is very much built around that, along with bringing in kind of experience and stuff. It's going to be new for all Town fans. The Kieran McKenna era is over. We've had ridiculous success under him, and we've gone for Gary O'Neill, who does have a proven track record in terms of keeping sides up. He's done it with both Bournemouth and Wolves, so obviously the board have put their faith in him to be the man to take the next step of the journey. McKenna did amazingly well, 3 promotions in 4 years, and Gary O'Neill now has the chance to take that on, look to get us the right side of the line come May, before looking to really kind of establish us in the Premier League. In terms of our summer business, I think we've done really sensible recruitment so far. More is needed. I'll be honest, a side that comes up from the Championship, the gulf is so big, even for one that was at this level 2 years ago. It's really important to go out and give yourself the best chance of staying up. We've gone for Premier League experience. 2 years ago, we had Ben Johnson and Calvin Phillips on loan. The Calvin Phillips loan didn't work at all. Issa Diop's come in from Fulham. Sasa Lukic has come in from Fulham. They both bring both the physicality and the Premier League know-how that I think obviously we're going to need, that was sorely lacking a couple of seasons ago. Noticeably, for pretty much the first time in our history, we are focusing recruitment very much on Europe, on the continent. Emerson, an exciting but probably raw striker, has come in from France. Hopefully, by the time this goes out, we will have announced a deal for Julio Enciso from Strasbourg. He was on loan with us a couple of years ago for the second half of the season, played under O'Neill at Strasbourg last year, and he's one of those ones who on a difficult day can provide that bit of magic. I'm sure Toffee's fans will remember the goal he scored at Goodison Park towards the end of the 24-25 season. So we'll need a little bit more. I mean, the tactics in pre-season have been pretty similar to what McKenna's played. It's a 4-2-3-1, so we still have areas of the squad that need improvement. I'd like some Premier League experience up front. We were linked with Callum Wilson at the start of the window. He went to Brentford instead. That kind of player who's been there and done it before, I think will be really crucial to our chances chances of staying up. In terms of Everton, I'm actually based in Chester, so not a million miles away from Liverpool. I've got Everton supporting mates and work colleagues, and the kind of feeling that they've been giving me is that they were frustrated how the season ended last year. Was it 5-6 games, I think, without a win? It kind of petered out a little bit, but they were enthused by the first half of the season in terms of how, the good start that you had, and the thought that maybe they could be pushing for a Europa Conference or maybe Europa League kind of place in the league. We done our 1-20s on Blue Monday last week, and I had you guys down as finishing 9th. I thought a solid mid-table campaign for them. I know David Moyes is going into the last year of his contract, so there might well be some noise about that, but I kind of thought, a defence including the likes of Pickford and Tarkowski and Keane and Branthwaite, hopefully a big player if he can come back to fitness, should be pretty stable, and I don't think you'll have any fears in terms of any kind of relegation battles like you had a couple and 2-3 years ago. In terms of the players, I think Hayden Hackney's a really good buy. We were so close to getting him last summer. He came down to Ipswich. We couldn't get the deal across the line. He was then pretty much, everyone would agree, the best player in the Championship last season. It'll be really interesting how he steps up. He's a player I've always liked. Get on the ball, runs with it, can score goals. Is an excellent player at certainly a Championship level, so he'll be one. It'll be really interesting to see if he can make that step up. I guess you'll probably still need more. Do you need like I've mentioned in CISO for us, one of those Stardust kind of players? Do you get Grealish back on loan to add a bit of flair? Wait and see, I guess. In terms of how we're both going to do, as I said, I had you guys down in mid-table. For Ipswich, I've gone for us finishing 17th. It's the easy kind of cop-out answer. I can't predict them to be relegated. I think Hull and Coventry will probably go back down, and then because of the amount of the league that are starting with new managers, combined with a lot of sides involved in Europe, I'm kind of hoping that the clubs that Town didn't lay a finger on 2 years ago, your likes of Crystal Palaces, of Brightons, etc., I'm kind of hoping they're the sides we can look to take more points off, and therefore make sure come May we are just about the right side of the line. I've actually got Sunderland to go down. I think second season syndrome. It's only sort of midway through August, but so far I've done very, very little. Only one free transfer in the transfer market, so they could still do more business, but at the moment have done very little. Combined with a European campaign, I just think will they be one that gets caught up and is the wrong side of the relegation spots come the end of the season. And in terms of who's going to win the league, I cannot see past Arsenal. It's the boring answer because they are the champions, but everyone else in the traditional top six has got new management. Arsenal signing Bruno Guimaraes has probably made them have the best midfield in the league, I would suggest. And Arteta has built this squad in terms of its age to develop and to go further. And I think they will look to push further in Europe. I know they got to the Champions League final, but that's the next big tick for them. And I just think that with the uncertainty, Maresca coming in at Man City, Alonso coming in at Chelsea, Spurs, who finished 17th 2 years on the bounce, don't expect that at all. But, they are a side which has the ability to implode. Villa have lost a couple of players as well. Man United not really spending what we thought they would. Liverpool going through transition. I kind of thought all these sides might struggle to get themselves going, and therefore I think the way is clear for Arsenal to win it. All the best for the season. Looking forward to going to the Hill Dickinson, and all the best apart from we meet you a couple of times. Cheers. Bye-bye.
How are we doing, guys? It's Oscar from All These TV. It's an absolute pleasure to be back on the channel once again. Absolute legends at Toffee Blues. Every single time we've collaborated, it's been a fantastic experience. So let's go into it again. Leeds United in their second season in the Premier League. What do I expect from Leeds United's second season in the Premier League? Well, to be honest, it's very difficult to read. I genuinely think it's anywhere between about 8th and 17th for Leeds United this season. It's so hard to sort of pick out. And I think that's the case for a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams outside that so-called Big Six plus Villa are not sure what to expect this season. I think it's going to be very, very tight in between those places. I genuinely think 10 points can drop you from 8th to about 14th or 15th. I genuinely think it'll be that tight this season. I think there's a lot of good, solid sort of 7, 8 out of 10 teams in this Premier League this season. But with Leeds United, the second season historically has tended to be more difficult for Leeds. Certainly under Marcelo Bielsa, we finished 9th in 2020-2021, our first season back in 16 years in the Premier League. But the second season famously was much more difficult, where we needed pure Rafinha magic to keep us in the Premier League. That team massively dropped off. Now, a lot of that decline was down to key injuries. The likes of Calvin Phillips, the likes of Liam Cooper, got big injuries, big leaders in the dressing room, were out for much of that season. The recruitment also wasn't good enough. We took too many things for granted. Players that had overperformed didn't overperform again, as you'd kind of expect. And this season, Leeds have done quite opposite. I think we've done good recruitment so far. James Trafford, what a signing that is. Muharemovic as well, should hopefully be a really big signing for us so far. Looks like an upgrade on Pascal Strauch. We then look at Harry Wilson, for example. Number 10 was maybe a position where we're lacking a bit of creativity. Harry Wilson should bring that. Maybe not being quite at his best in pre-season, but there's certainly more to come, I think, from Harry Wilson. I think over a season, albeit he may be inconsistent, I think he will deliver over a season for us. So there's lots to be positive about. I think the players that we needed to keep, we have kept. The likes of Ethan Ampadu, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Anton Stack. So far, we have been able to keep. So the signs are, hopefully, we're at the very least able to repeat what we did last season, and that would be a solid season for us. I think if we can get a couple more new players through the door, maybe the ambitions can be a little bit higher, but I'm not under any illusions. The target, first and foremost, is 40 points, and I think that's the case for a lot of teams this season. We don't really know what to expect from the 3 teams coming up. I've got rough predictions on those, but you don't really know what to expect so far. So it will be interesting in that kind of regard. So for Leeds United, I would like to think at the very worst, well, I say that, worst case scenario is we kind of equal what we did last season. Best case scenario is we push towards mid-table. I think we're still, there's been talk about 8th spot and that lot, and I think it is possible, but I think we're still a little bit off that yet. I think another season or 2 are probably needed for us to really push up that table. But who knows? There's a lot of teams playing in Europe as well. So if we're looking at Everton, Everton, for me, I think it's more of a case of, yes, some signings that have been made have impressed me. I think Hayden Hackney, for example, a player I'm quite aware of from the Championship, not so much last season, but the season before that. He had an excellent season for Borough. Really good midfield battles when we played Middlesbrough, when Hayden Hackney was in the team. Is he a direct fit for David Moyes' system? Who knows? But I think at the very least, he's a good option to have, and he's a good technical player, and he will get his way into that Everton scene. There's no question of that for me. I think there's enough quality there for him to be a solid Premier League player. In terms of Everton, though, I just think it's a case of getting the best out of the players Everton already have. The likes of Tiano Barry is a real big one for me. I watch a lot of the League of Football. I think I probably have said this before on the channel. And Tiano Barry at Villarreal was a really, really promising striker. I think he showed glimpses of quality last season. I think he's a little bit criticised. Not so much by the fan base, I'd say more by the media. I think quite critical of Tiano Barry. In the end, I thought he actually came good towards the end of the season. I think this season you'll see a much better version of Tiano Barry. For me, he's a much better option than Beto for Everton's centre-forward spot. I think you'll see a much better season from him. I think obviously Jared Branthwaite is a big one as well. I think he only played 10 games last season. Him being fully fit is such a big one for Everton. I think he's one of the best penalties box defenders in the league. And I think technically he's really good as well. I think he's a real top quality defender. And Everton, to be fair, albeit maybe because of his injuries, have done well to keep him up to now. And I think you have to make the most of an asset like that. Jordan Pickford as well continues to amaze me how he doesn't seem to get any interest from teams in the Big Six, so-called Big Six. But fair play to Everton. He seems fully bought into the project, a clear leader now for Everton. And he had another really good World Cup for England as well. So you've got some players there who can really step up. So for me, I look at it with Everton. I think at the very worst, similar with Leeds, similar to last season, but with real potential to push on from last season as well. I think Iliman Ndiaye is probably the big one for me. I think if you keep Ndiaye at the football club, you've got a big chance. You have got a big chance because I think he's one of the best players outside the Big Six. Maybe even the best player outside the Big Six clubs now when you look at some of the moves that have been made this summer. So I think the very worst case scenario for Everton is a repeat of last season, which did kind of peter out, of course. But for large spells of that season, you were pushing towards Europe and you looked a very solid team who could keep clean sheets, maybe not playing the flashiest football, but that's typical Moyes, isn't it? It's not always going to be that, well, it's very rarely going to be the case of, particularly entertaining team to watch, but it's effective. And Moyes just needs to get the fans back on side, is my feeling on it. If Moyes doesn't get the fans back on side, a new manager can definitely get results like that out of that Everton team. So I'd say, however which way it happens, at the very worst case scenario, Everton repeat last season. I think more likely, you probably push higher up the table and more towards mid-table. Similar season to Leeds. I see us both as very, very similar types of team. So yeah, if it's going to be pushed for a specific position, I'd go 11th for Leeds, 12th for Everton. You can maybe switch it around. I think there's a little bit more happiness around Leeds at this moment in time in terms of the recruitment we've done, but that can soon switch. I think both clubs are very similar in terms of things can change very, very quickly. Our recruitment could be seen in a very different way if we start the season badly, and it's the same for Everton. If Everton start the season well, all of a sudden things look up. We're both quite fickle clubs, let's be honest. I've got a lot of Everton fans in my family. we are both quite fickle clubs, let's be honest about it. In terms of who gets relegated, I am going to go, I think definitely getting relegated. No, not definitely, but probably getting relegated. I think it's Coventry, Hull. I think Ipswich will stay up. I think Ipswich has done enough to stay up. Whether Gary O'Neill's good enough, who knows? But once again, you have to look at it as a season as a whole. Even if Gary O'Neill doesn't work out, I still think another manager can get a lot out of that team. So I'm going to go Coventry, Hull, Fulham to go down in no particular order. But I do think it'll be tight again. I do think at least one of the promoted teams will stay up. Winning the league, I'm going to go for Arsenal. I think Arsenal probably will get that sort of big name forward over the line. I actually think this won't be a popular on the channel. I think Liverpool will be a lot better this season. I think it says what Liverpool fans want. I think Andoni Iraola will deliver a lot more of that. But I still think it's going to be Arsenal winning the title. I can't really look past Arsenal at this moment in time. So yeah, that's been my predictions. I've been Oscar at All Leeds TV. Absolute pleasure as always. Thank you.
Hello there, I'm Amos Murphy from the City Ramble, ahead of what is looking like it's going to be a very intriguing and also entertaining season, not just from a Manchester City point of view, but across the Premier League in general. Obviously, City are probably one of the teams with the most eyes on them heading into the brand new campaign. They lost their legendary manager Pep Guardiola in the summer, and it's been a summer of plenty of upheaval, to be honest with you. Alongside Guardiola, Bernardo Silva leaves the football club, Nathan Ake leaves the football club, John Stones leaves the football club, and in the last week or so we have the dagger, that Rodri, the best midfielder in world football, the 2024 Ballon d'Or winner, will also leave the football club. Now, I don't think you need to be a football genius to understand that isn't the best preparation for a brand new campaign, especially one when you have lost the manager itself. Losing one or two of those players will be bad enough in most summers, but even still, it feels like there's been so much turnover that City are heading into the unknown. And in terms of the summer business, there hasn't been a great deal as we sit here today. Elliot Anderson was the big marquee signing earlier on in the transfer window, and it really whet the appetite. People thought that City would be busy in several different positions. We were speaking about potentially signing a right back, another midfielder or two, a winger. Yes, of course, those things could, and by the time this goes out, may have happened. Buwadi looks like it's getting closer from a City point of view, and of course there is the ongoing saga involving Enzo Fernandez. However, heading into the first game of the Premier League season, they haven't been done yet, and there is still gaps in the squad which were exposed in that game against Arsenal in the Community Shield. Of course, the result doesn't necessarily matter because it is still a pre-season friendly, but there are some issues that City will have to address if they want to be successful this season. Across the Northwest, in Merseyside, for Everton, I imagine similar conversations are being had in terms of getting business done. I feel like in general, the expanded World Cup has pushed everybody's business back even later than we usually get in a World Cup summer. It feels like you look across the entirety of the Premier League, very few are fully done and dusted in terms of getting their squad prepared. Obviously, a couple of exciting signings, Hayden Hackney, Tyreek George, who by all accounts have impressed at times throughout pre-season. I guess goals will always be the issue with Everton. Can they have enough goals in the team to make that a step up and challenge for the European positions, which of course the Toffees were so close to doing heading into the final few games of the season? I imagine there's some possible resentment at that late Jeremy Doku goal in the thriller, the Easter weekend thriller, I believe it was. Oh no, just after, sorry, the Monday night game at Bramley Moor when Everton were obviously cruising to a win, and then suddenly the collapse, and it wasn't a result that either team wanted, really. There was a chance for Everton to win points and get a European qualification spot. So I imagine that is probably the goal heading into this season for the Toffees. It has been so long since Everton have graced the European stage, and with more teams than ever getting that opportunity from a Premier League point of view, I'd imagine Everton want to be part of that party, essentially. And I would say that on the surface, of course, you would expect the likes of Chelsea and Tottenham to be more competitive. Newcastle don't look like they're going to be necessarily back up that position again. Can the likes of Brighton, Sunderland, Bournemouth compete, and Crystal Palace as well, compete whilst playing midweek? I think Everton have got a chance at making that jump. I will say a predicted finish for Everton. Why not 7th? Why not a little cheeky Conference League run? And, perhaps even, as we've seen with English teams so far in that competition, go on and win it themselves. I'm sure Everton fans would be in dreamland if that were to happen. For Manchester City, I think the question will be, can they win the Premier League title this season? And I would say yes. I know there'll be eyebrows being raised because Arsenal have just turned City over 3-0 in a game that, granted, didn't necessarily matter, but it looked like Arsenal were a step or two above City. However, I think the issue for Arsenal, as we've seen with Liverpool, for example, last season, defending a Premier League title is harder than winning it the first time. And I think maybe the outside football world underestimated just how impressive City's run of 4 in a row was. There'll be people debating the legitimacy of it, of course, but even still, to get those players to go again and again and again, 4 seasons in a row, completely unprecedented. Getting a team to win back-to-back Premier League titles is an incredible achievement. So that is a nagging doubt at the back of my mind. Of course, the more likely outcome will be that Arsenal just do what they've done for the last year or so and beat the teams that they're supposed to beat and get enough points and win the Premier League title because the competition isn't that great. Can City win the title? Yes. Will they? I don't think so. I think it will be another second place finish, second again, ole, etc. for City this time around, which, to be fair, considering it will be a transition season under Enzo Maresca, I think a lot of City fans would probably take that if you asked them right now. Who gets relegated? It's the cop-out answer, I guess, but it's looking like all 3 teams could very much go straight back down, although there are 1 or 2 who I think perhaps maybe they could be at a little bit of risk. Haven't necessarily been impressed with Fulham's off-season. I feel like they're maybe sleepwalking into a bit of a comfort position where they might need to get a few more points than they needed over the last couple of seasons. They could get slipped into it. But yeah, I think it is probably going to be the boring answer of the same 3 teams go back down, which we were treated not to happen in last season, but it does feel like that is a trend over the last 5 seasons or so, which has established itself. And I said before, Arsenal are probably going to be the league champions again. Yay!
Jay Motter here from Manchester United YouTube channel, Stretford Paddock. Big shout out to all you lot at the Toffee Blues. Big fan of what you guys do. I've been on the channel a few times, so keep going and hopefully smashing it again this season. Here's my thoughts. I need to share my thoughts. I'm hoping I'm getting these questions right, by the way. I've forgotten them already. My thoughts on Manchester United, my thoughts on Everton, my thoughts on who's going to do well and who's going to get relegated, etc. So, in terms of Manchester United, we've had an okay summer with the signings of Tielemans and Santos, who are very good players, and I like them. The problem is, it's not enough. So in terms of the quality, it's there. The quantity isn't. Manchester United cannot go into this season with the same amount of players, more or less, that we had last season. Last season, we had 40 games. I think that's the first time in about 100 years that we've had so few games. This season, we're in the Champions League. We obviously want to do better in the domestic cup competitions as well. We could have up to 60 games this season, and having a similar squad to last season isn't going to cut the mustard. So I'm a bit disappointed the board haven't backed Michael Carrick a bit more, and I'm hoping we're going to see some sort of late transfer deadline day action, or in the week leading up to transfer deadline day, Manchester United start splashing the cash a bit more than we have been doing. We have to buy the right players, but we haven't bought enough at the minute. I can't remember the question, so I'm just going to sort of, wing it. In terms of Everton and Moyes, I like David Moyes. I didn't like him at Manchester United, I'm not going to lie to you, but I think he's a good manager. I think he gets a bit of a bad rap at times. It wasn't his fault. He was over-promoted. He should never have got the United job, but I thought he did a very good job at West Ham and was treated pretty badly there, and they've always had this idea that they're better than David Moyes, and yet he was the one that won him a trophy, and he was the one that kept getting him into Europe, and they scored quite a few goals, so I always thought that was a bit odd. What he did at Everton did quite well last season. I was going to say very well, but I think there was a bit of a sticky patch, wasn't there? I think towards the end, where at one point looked like you were flying and then tailed off a little bit. I like the signing of Aidan Hackney. He was linked with United a few times. People saying that because Michael Carrick knew him or knows him, that he could be a player for us. I don't know, and I'm not trying to be dismissive and patronising here, but I don't know if he's good enough for United. Now, that doesn't mean he's not good enough for Everton. Again, you might, what makes you so much better? United are aiming for more Champions League football, to be challenging at the very top, and I think Everton probably aren't aiming there yet. So that's why I think Aidan Hackney might be a good signing for you guys. I know a lot of people who've watched him in the Championship say he's a very talented midfielder, and obviously worked with another very talented midfielder in Michael Carrick, who got a tune out of him. So be interesting to see how he does. Also, the other deal you did, was it Brennan Johnson for Dwight McNeil? Brennan Johnson scored one of the worst goals in one of the worst games I've ever been in, or been at, I should say. It was Europa League final. He got the goal for Everton. For Everton, no, he got the goal for Spurs. An awful game, awful winner. And that's not me being better. Going back and watch it. I don't rate him that highly. I think he's okay, but I don't really rate Dwight McNeil, who started off at United, I think, very highly either. And I think that swap deal is a bit mid. Sorry, guys, I just think it is. So I don't know if that's going to move the needle. I think you got Norsgaard as well. Is it the lad from Chelsea? So you've done some business. You've done all right. I don't know is the honest answer whether that's going to be, massively move the needle for you and your club. I know the Hill Dickinson is a fantastic stadium. I think your form there hasn't been amazing, but obviously had some decent results. I've got a massive soft spot for Everton. My grandfather-in-law is an Evertonian, and he went to the Hill Dickinson. He's got a brick there, and he went and watched you guys beat Crystal Palace last season. So I'm hoping you do well, and plus, my enemy's enemy is my friend, and we all know your thoughts on Liverpool Football Club. I do like Jimmy Garner as well. Big Jimmy Garner fan. I think he could do well for you this season. I was a bit disappointed United weren't in for him, because I thought he could have come back to Old Trafford and do a job. But, very rare that players do return. So I think you've done all right, and I think you'll finish around mid-table-ish. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but I've got to be honest. I think in terms of getting relegated, I think two of the teams that have come up are going to go down. I think Hull, and I like Hull. I know Dean Olden, who's the assistant head coach there, and he's a top lad, but I just think they'll struggle. So I'm going to go Hull and Ipswich go down. I think Coventry might just stay up, but they might not as well, to be honest with you. I think Newcastle are going to end up going down this season. I think they've had a bit of a nightmare in the summer, and I think they might get dragged into it and might not be able to cope with it. And even if they don't, even just them in a relegation fight would be pretty funny after the way they were going on with when all the money came in. In terms of the top end of the table, I'd like to say United could win the league. I have said United could win the league on many podcasts, but I think we need to do more business if that's going to happen, especially 2 games a week, maybe even 3 games in 7 days or 8 days, whatever it is, when you have Champions League football. So it's going to be difficult. I think we can definitely finish in the top 4. I think Liverpool are going to struggle. Iriola's a good manager, but he has these big, long periods where he doesn't win games, and I don't know if that's going to work at Anfield if that happens. And I don't think they bought well last summer as well, the previous summer, and I feel like they're still sort of reaping the repercussions of that. Plus Van Dijk's getting older, plus they've lost Mo Salah. I know he wasn't at his best, but he's still a good player. So I think they might struggle a little bit. I think the rest of the top 4 will probably be City, Arsenal, and probably 1 game a week Chelsea can sneak in there. But I think this Premier League could be wide open, and I think there could be some massive surprises, because loads of new managers, a lot of money being spent, but a lot of money being overspent. I think Spurs have overspent massively on certain players. Clubs losing big players as well. Look at City losing Rodri, Newcastle losing Gordon and Tonali and Gimenez. There's been a few players that have gone on there where you're going, wow. So I just think this could be a massively surprising Premier League season. And listen, I don't want you to, I'm not saying anything stupid. I want you to finish above United, but maybe Everton can take advantage of that. And, compared to the other clubs as well, you've got a bit of stability there. You've got a manager who's not only been there a while, but has also been there in previous years as well for over a decade. So maybe that'll stand you in good stead. But I think that's me covering everything. And if not, maybe I'll have to send you another video. See you on the next one.
Hi there, I'm Jonathan Young from the True Faith Newcastle United podcast. My thoughts going into the season, very mixed, as you can imagine, from a Newcastle United fan's point of view. We've had a crazy summer with a change of manager, which not many people saw coming, replaced by someone that not many people knew who he was. So, but Eisler seems like an exciting manager. He seems like he's won a lot of trophies abroad, managed some exciting teams, he plays some exciting football. So we're looking forward to seeing how he gets on. He's very thrash metal apparently, so read into that what you will. Our summer business is mixed. We've let 4 of our biggest players in our history in a way go. There's mixed feelings about most of them. Some we're happy to see the back of, including your ex-compatriot Anthony Gordon. Not happy to see the back of in terms of good riddance, but he went about it the right way. And he gave us good service. So apologies for that. But yeah, the youngsters we brought in are could be exciting. One lad is so unknown in French football that you could hardly get anyone to speak about him in Bamba, but he's looked solid, but he definitely needs time to develop. Straw is the head and shoulders the most exciting signing we've signed. He looks good on the ball. He's got excellent body shape, and he when he makes a pass, and it looks like he reads the game well. But again, being only 18 years old, we just don't know how that's going to work out. And the Dedic just signed him, so we have absolutely no idea what the lad is going to be like. We've also brought in Torre, who is probably the most exciting in terms of wingers. So yeah, and who knows what we'll bring in between now and the end of the transfer window. But yeah, it's mixed. It's very mixed feelings going into the season and our summer business. In terms of Everton, I've always been a fan of David Moyes. I think what he achieved at West Ham showed what a good manager was, and the moment where he brought his father onto the pitch was very wholesome. I don't think anyone can begrudge him doing that, which obviously led to his second coming at Everton, and he has had a solid start in his first season back in your new stadium, which I think is going to be a huge game changer because it elevates you into the next level. Goodison Park was a historic stadium. You must have mixed feelings about leaving it, but when you factor in all the extra income and all the revenue that football seems to be dominated by these days, it was a no-brainer. We enjoyed our trip there last year. But yeah, your signings, big fan of Hayden Hackney. I think he's a player who'll work out either way. He'll either have a couple of big seasons at Everton and make you a load of money when someone inevitably comes in because of the way the league is unfortunately set up. But in that time he'll play good football for you, and he'll be a real engine in the middle of the park. I think Tierno Barry's coming into his own. We saw that in the game we played up in Edinburgh. He looks like a solid player. He's got a decent eye for goal, and again, someone who's young. So hopefully he'll be able to find his feet more this season for you guys. I just think maybe centre back's an issue. Keane and Tarkowski. I did see a tongue-in-cheek comment that it was the Burnley centre-back pairing from about 15 years ago. So yeah, we'll have to see how you get on there. But between now and then, you could bring another player, and of course you've got our perennial enemy in Jordan Pickford in goal. That he showed at the World Cup what he can do. He could be a bit erratic, but he'll always be solid in that respect. And my wild card player that I like of yours, which might be crazy, is Patterson. I think he looks like a solid right back, and he's got the opportunity to grasp it this season with Coleman moving on. So yeah, hopefully you guys can have a decent season. In terms of predicted finishes, I'm going to put us both in the same bracket, that lower Europe mid-table position, 7th or 8th to 10th. I think that will be good seasons for both of our sides, with the way the Premier League is. Hopefully both sides can take advantage of all those other clubs that are in Europe, and we'll be able to have decent seasons. So say Newcastle United 7th or 8th, Everton 9th or 10th or 8th. So maybe we'll be battling it out for those places come the end of the season, who knows. In terms of who gets relegated, the Premier League is, as we all know, is a tough one these years, and so I think Coventry and Ipswich will probably struggle, but Hull as well. But I think one of them probably will stay out of it. Probably Ipswich, because they've got the experience from a couple of years ago, and a bit like the last couple of seasons, I think they'll be one of the bigger, more established teams pulled into it. Let's hope it's Tottenham. And who wins the league? Anyone but Arsenal. Thank you very much.
Hello, Matt Davis from Forest Focus here, talking about Nottingham Forest. Obviously, looking forward to the season ahead. No one's really talking about us, which I quite like. We've got a really good new manager in Oliver Glasner, so hopefully he's worth a place or two in the Premier League. Best manager that we've had for a long time, obviously, although Vitor Pereira did a great job. Sean Dyche started well and then didn't do a great job at all, and I was pretty relieved ultimately on with hindsight after he went, but he did do a good job initially, did the job he needed to. Anyway, looking forward to the season ahead. On our summer business, we haven't been that busy. Obviously, we've lost Elliot Anderson, which was always going to happen, really. But he's such a top player. Got good money for him. Forest are great sellers; they always get good fees, I think. So we've only had a free transfer midfielder come in to sort of replace him, if you can replace a player who's done that well for you, like for like in Zava Schlager. He's an Austrian international, played for them at the World Cup, coming off the back of a really good spell in the Bundesliga, also played for Glasner for a couple of years. So he knows him well, knows what he can do. The only downside of him is he's had a couple of ACL injuries over the years, but he's looked really good in pre-season. So we might sign another midfielder as well. We're linked with Bergval quite a lot, and maybe one or two other names have sort of floated around. But Bergval seems to be the main one. But I wouldn't be surprised if we went into the season without signing a midfielder. We will sign a right wing back, hopefully. Daniel Munoz, interestingly, makes the most sense. He knows Glasner well. Good price, I think 20 million quid in the current market would be good, but we don't get on very well with Crystal Palace, and he's been linked with Everton as well. So that's an interesting one. The striker situation as well, we've been linked with the same player as Everton, excuse me, in Liam Delap, which I do like, but it's a lot of money. He's very rough around the edges, but if you can harness his potential, then that'd be good. I think he's, I don't read anything into play having a bad year at Chelsea, put it that way. So that wouldn't bother me. And Usman Diomande is the centre half we have signed to complete our back three. 40 million euros from Sporting Lisbon. Looks really good, really highly rated. Glasner wanted him at Palace. He's linked with loads of big clubs over the years. So I think that's going to be really smart business. One of the signings of the season, possibly. So we haven't done a lot of business, but I'm quite happy with what we have done. When it comes to Everton, I think they're probably going to be sort of in the same bracket again as last season. Brennan Johnson's really interesting. I know he's coming off the back of that awful spell at Palace and a bad year in general with the Spurs before that, but he did really well for Tottenham for a year, and he was great for Forest, and I love him. He's a player who'll get goals if you use him right. He's not an out-and-out winger. He's a forward, a sort of a number 10 kind of winger hybrid. His skill set's quite particular, so I think you have to harness it, otherwise he can look bad. But he's a guy who will arrive on the back post and score goals, and he can create goals as well. He's just so low on confidence, so I think you're going to have to be patient with him. But I really think there's definitely a player there, and I wish him every success. Merlin Roll has signed and sounds like he's pretty decent, can play everywhere. And Tyreek George, I think, is a good player as well. Hayden Hackney is one we were linked with, and I really wanted us to sign him. So he feels like a good, solid replacement for Idrissa Gana Gueye, if that's how you guys are viewing him. Or it's Christian Norgard, who's another smart signing, but a Brentford fan who comes on our pod says that he can't play more than twice a week, which doesn't matter so much when you're not in Europe. But he's a good, solid, experienced player. But I don't know if he's a 90-minute every week man. But a good signing as well. And then Gana Gueye's gone. And Dwight McNeil's gone. But you've sort of replaced them. I suppose the question is, have you really improved? I always thought Everton needed two new fullbacks to really kick on, and maybe they'll sign someone. But it sounds like they're linked with the right back, obviously. They want a right back. Jared Branthwaite's a good player, so I think he's not quite a new signing, but he did miss a lot of football. So I think he makes a big difference, hopefully, for you. Have you solved the striker situation completely? I think Beto's outside Everton. It feels like fans don't rate him. I think he's fine. I think he just blows a bit hot and cold whenever I see him. And I like Barry. They're sort of the same. He seems to blow a bit hot and cold and a bit rough around the edges. So maybe that's an area you look at. And I don't know what's happening with Jack Grealish, whether he's coming back. So I sort of feel like you haven't really moved the dial that much from last season. So I guess if I'm predicting where you'll finish, I feel like we're sort of pretty similar. Anywhere from 7th to 15th is possible. I think I had us finishing 9th in our preview podcast. Maybe a Leeds or a Brentford are going to have a storming season, and I think Everton could do that. But equally, I could see them kind of labouring to another mid-table finish, and Moyes gets sacked and things like that. So they're a bit of an unknown, but they just look like a steady mid-table Premier League team to me. Maybe I should be more enthusiastic or less enthusiastic. You guys will know your team better than me, but they look fine. So I'll say 9th for Forest and 10th for Everton, but it could be anywhere in that big wide bracket. I suppose Arsenal are going to win the league, aren't they? Feels like a lot for Man City to bounce back from losing Pep. I know I shouldn't say Liverpool did it, but Liverpool did it with Klopp. But I think Arsenal are in pole position. And then relegation, I think Ipswich and Coventry have spent a lot and give it a good go. I think Hull are going to be hopeless. And maybe Coventry can stay up. But I do ultimately think the 3 promoted teams will go down. Like, no one looks primed for a West Ham or a Wolves kind of gradual decline. Maybe Fulham are in that bracket if they made a terrible appointment. And I think teams like Sunderland are going to struggle after playing in Europe. And I think you need to make a lot of signings. So I think they might struggle, but I don't think they'll go down. So I'll say the 3 promoted clubs ultimately will go down because it's such a big gap to stay in the Premier League. And I'm pleased we've done it for 4 years and hopefully many more to come. I don't think we'll be in a relegation battle, but nothing's impossible in the Premier League. You get a few injuries and things go wrong and you end up with 4 managers in a season. So, yeah, thank you very much.
How's it going? It's Ben from Roker Report. Thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the season coming up here. So I've got your questions up. A little bit about the thoughts going into the season. So from a wider Premier League perspective, I'm looking forward to it. A lot of new managers, I think it's 12 out of the 20 are new or just come in the door recently, including De Zerbi, I think, who only got those 4 or 5 games at the end of the season. I think that'll shake it up really nicely. So I'm looking forward to kind of what'll happen at the top of the league and then maybe as it filters its way down with a lot of new managers in there. On a Sunderland kind of perspective, really, really exciting season, probably the most exciting season that we've had during my lifetime. I was born in 99, so kind of missed those peak years, with Quinn, Phillips, Reid, missed all of that. So probably the most exciting in my lifetime. Europa League, had an amazing last day of the season there against Chelsea. Looking forward to seeing how we manage that, and I'm really excited to get over for a couple of games. Don't know if I'll be able to get those away tickets. They'll definitely be in high demand, but hopefully I can even get to maybe a couple of the cities and just be out there with the away fans and experiencing those European cities. It's been a long time. The summer business for ourselves, I think if I was doing this a couple of days ago, might have a slightly different tone with how little we've been doing. Before, 2 days ago, we'd only brought in Thomas Meunier he's a free agent actually, the Belgian right back. He's coming 35, so it really was just kind of a multifaceted kind of signing in that we wanted to get someone with experience like Xhaka, but then also fill in that right back role where we had lost Lucia Hertrauda as well. He looks like a really classy operator in pre-season, so we'll see kind of what he can bring. The other signing so far is Dejan Metali from Toulouse. Looks like we're giving them around 25 million for that. We had to play hardball, but he looks like a really exciting left back and is widely touted to be the future of the French kind of team, or he has a future in the French team as their left back, maybe taken on after Luca Dean, who you will be familiar with. So hopefully we can add a bit more depth on that. Otherwise we might be a little bit fragile or a little bit thin going into those Europa games, especially across the 4 competitions twice a week. As for Everton, obviously it's said every time, it's a bit cliche, but Everton and Sunderland have a good mutual respect there, but there's no love lost, and there's no respect really for Moyes among the Sunderland faithful. I've had a look at some of the signings that were made. I saw Brennan Johnson and Dwight McNeil went for a swap there. I think Brennan Johnson's a really interesting one because he is a player that obviously has, I'd say, a high ceiling, maybe not in terms of his technical ability as a winger so much, but as a goal scorer, as a finisher. He only had 2 goals all of that season across his time with yourselves and Palace. Sorry, not with yourselves, with Palace and Spurs. So that's maybe where he's at the minute, but the previous season had 11 goals, got that last one in the Europa League final. He obviously has a lot of quality at getting in at that back post, and it's actually somebody that I would have liked for us to have signed when Palace got him, just as that right winger that can get in and tap it in at the back post. I saw that you've lost Gay as well, which is obviously a big loss, but then you brought in Roll on a permanent, who was really impressive when we played you last season, and a couple of other really good signings that I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I feel like the transfer business has been really good. The one thing that's always spoken about with Everton is about how there may not be that dynamic fullback, and I have seen the links to Daniel Munoz, which would be an incredible signing in my opinion. I'm not sure if that's been rubbished or not, but that would be really, really amazing if you could get him. And then obviously a lot of chat about Grealish. I'm not sure if that's going to happen again, but he was a real class act off the left while you had Njai on the right at the start of last season. So it's a shame that might not come back to fruition, but I'm not sure on the Everton fans' opinion on that. The season overall, I think it'll go pretty well for Everton, but I just don't think that Moyes will last the entire season necessarily. Or maybe if he does, I think he'll be getting replaced next season by maybe someone more dynamic, or maybe an Eddie Howe kind of signing there. Predicted finishes. For ourselves, I think it'll be difficult with the 2 games a season, especially right now. We haven't gotten too much depth into the building. I think we're actually kind of lighter than we were last season already. So hopefully we can get some good signings in the door. I would say maybe, I don't think we're going to be struggling like everyone else seems to. Obviously that's a biased kind of opinion, but I would like to think we could push for maybe around the 10th place. If we're pushing for the top 10, if we fall short, that's okay, as long as we do a good job in the Europa League, really, or just the other cup competitions overall. I'd be happy with that. For Everton, I think you could maybe push a little bit beyond us this season if you're not fighting on all fronts like that. Obviously, with teams like Sunderland and Everton, a lot of it's around the cup performances, because we're probably not going to win the league. So if you can get a good domestic campaign across the cups, across the league, then I think you're doing pretty well. So I think maybe lower top 10 for Everton, around 9th or 10th, and then maybe 11th to 13th for Sunderland, I could see. I think a lot of those top teams are going to push on and kind of reclaim their spots above and push everyone back down a little bit, like Spurs and Chelsea. So we'll see how that goes. As for the relegated teams, I've seen that Ipswich have spent a lot of money. They might be bringing in Palacios, and they've brought in a lot of good players. So I think that they will probably be the ones that I would bet on if I had to stay up. Coventry obviously have Frank Lampard and a good lot of continuity there going into the season, but I wouldn't be too confident with them. A lot's been made about Fulham maybe getting relegated, but we'll see how they go with their whole Spanish contingent coming in. So I would go probably just with the 3 promoted clubs to go back down, but with Ipswich as maybe the rogue choice to stay up in, and Fulham to go down. And then as for champions, I think it's kind of written for Arsenal to be champions again. There's so much change among the other teams, so Liverpool with Areola, Chelsea, City, everyone's got a lot of change going on. So I think it really sets itself up for Arsenal to do well. You saw how good they were against City in that Community Shield. It was 3-0. It wasn't even really a contest. And the depth they have is unbelievable. So I think they'll go on to be champions again. Might have gone a little bit over time, but I hope that answers your questions sufficiently. Good luck for the rest of the season. And yeah, cheers.
People, it's Tobes here, aka Tapping Tobes. Big up the Toffee Blues each and every time. I'm here to answer a couple of questions, and apologies if I look away because I'm going to be looking at my screen so I can remember the questions. So thoughts going into the season for me, I think it's a mad season, a lot of change, a lot of upheaval, not just for Tottenham but for the rest of the league. Pep leaving, Slot getting sacked, Xabi Alonso going to Chelsea, a couple of key players leaving, Mo Salah leaving. It's going to be a very new and unpredictable Premier League, so to speak. I think the only team that you can sort of nail on in terms of prediction is probably Arsenal, because they have the most stability of all the big sides and they're the best team in the league right now and they're the defending champs. But it also opens up an opportunity for some of the lower mid-table teams, because there's 9 teams playing in Europe this season. 9 teams out of 20. Almost half the league is going to be in Europe. So that's a big opportunity for the likes of Everton, the likes of a Brentford. Actually, no, Brentford are in Europe already. But you get my point. The mid-table teams to sort of steal a march. Newcastle to get back into European spots. Us, Chelsea, to get back into European spots. We have to see. So I think it's a season of unpredictability, I'd say. Thoughts on our business? I think our business has been very good so far, but I think both in terms of players that we've bought and players that we sold. People will talk about the money, and of course the prices in particular for 2 of them. In fact, all 3 of them are more than I think we should be paying. We shouldn't have had to pay that much for Van Heck. We shouldn't have had to pay that much for Tonali. We shouldn't have had to pay that much for Fernandes. But we needed those players, so we signed those players, and that's what I care about most importantly. I can always have my grievances about the price, and I have my own issue on the transfer market, because I think the transfer market is kind of cooked in terms of the rates that players are going for. But what did Tottenham need? We needed midfielders, top midfielders. We needed a certified centre-back that the manager can trust, because Romero is going out the door. Which leads me into my next point. We've not just bought well, but we sold well. Where we sold Romero, we sold Vuskovic, players who didn't want to be at the club anymore. We've made a ton of money off of our academy. We've made almost 40 million with add-ons off Middlesbrough. So clearly they're spending that Morgan Rogers money. But yeah, I think it's been a good summer so far in terms of incomings and outgoings. But it's a summer that if it was to end today, I wouldn't be 100% happy with, because the attack is still busted. We still need to bring in attackers. We need at least 2, if not 3 attackers to come in. And we need maybe 1 or 2 more sales, I would say. So yeah, that's my thoughts on our business. On Everton's business, I think Everton's business has actually been bright. I think Tyreek George is a good signing. I know obviously Jack Grealish, no more Jack Grealish because he's gone back to Man City, so I think they had to get a left winger. I think Tyreek George is a good signing. I don't rate Brennan Johnson. I think Brennan Johnson's absolutely terrible. I don't think it's good enough. Yeah, I don't rate Johnson. That's not really a personal thing. That's an experience thing. I've had the Johnson experience up close. It's not nice, but he is a player who can be serviceable under the right manager, i.e. the manager having to get the best out of him, or better yet, create a system that can essentially cover up his weaknesses, which are vast, and basically like improve his strengths, which are very few. But he can score goals. He can arrive at the back post. He can notch goals. Like his timing of his runs, positioning inside the box is good. But yeah, he's a very, very weak attacker for me. But I feel like overall, Everton have probably got the better deal here, in the sense that they've been able to, like I say, Everton, you guys have got the better deal here, because you've been able to get a player who was obviously well past his best and had like a year left, for a player who's entering his prime years as a footballer, and has played for a better club than Everton in Tottenham, in my opinion. So yeah, you would think with David Moyes maybe utilising him in a way in which Crystal Palace didn't, because let's be honest, he didn't fit the Palace system, he could do well, maybe. Anyway, I think with the other signing you made, Hackney, he was linked to Tottenham maybe like a year and a half ago. He looks tidy from the little I've seen. I'm not going to say I've been watching him in the Championship. But he looks like a decent signing. I think it's a signing Everton probably need to make. Obviously losing Idrissa. I reckon. What's my man's name? The central midfielder, Garner and Hayden in the midfield. I feel like that could be a decent pairing. Could be a very decent pairing for Everton, obviously with Dewsbury Hall ahead. So I do think Everton have they got the bones of a decent side, and I think they've recruited relatively well in the summer so far. It'll be interesting to see if you can take Richarlison off us. That'd be great. That'd be very great. In terms of league finishes, I'm going to stick my neck out and say if Tottenham get the 2 attackers that we are linked with, I think we'll probably finish 5th or 6th. I feel like with Everton, if I go off the point I made around 9 teams playing in European competition, I think there's an opportunity for Everton to get back into the top 10 this season. I think that should be the aim for Everton, get back into the top 10, maybe try and sneak a little European spot, because it goes down to the 8th place now, maybe. So yeah, 7th, 8th place, it goes down. I can't see Everton finishing 7th. I probably can't see Everton finishing 8th, but they can try. I think the aim should be getting back into the top 10. I can see Everton probably sneaking maybe like a 10th or 9th place finish. Who's going to get relegated? I think Hull City are going straight back down. Ipswich are going straight back down. And then I'm not sure who the last spot will go to. I am not sure. I think in terms of the title, right now, I can't really see anyone beating Arsenal. I think they've got the strongest squad, the most balanced, and they've had the least amount of change in comparison to the other big 6 teams.